Dude, this is awesome, man.
All
Here,
right, so here's
cheers.
my sweet spot. Hey,
cheers to
Aaron,
a
cheers,
podcast.
my friend. It's been
Jordan,
years.
it's been years. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being on my podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's so funny because to just tell a super quick story, we first met on this photo shoot where a friend of mine was the photographer. You were the male model, and my girlfriend at the time, Erin, was the female model, and you guys were both basically in this cool wood shoot. And so I'm so happy that fateful day 6 or so years ago has brought us to this point in time.
I know, and here we are. Like, it must be what 7, 8 years or something wild like that. 6 years.
So yeah.
I don't know, but we're gonna have to also like repost the photo that you and I have from 2015 or whatever it was.
Right.
You know, maybe make a collage for the episode. Just because it's just so weird. You just don't know. And this is what this podcast is all about. So for people that don't know, that are here for the first time, this is a man's journey. This is the Aaron Mann's Journey podcast. And that's exactly what it is. It's like, who have I met on this journey through the entertainment industry? Like amazing people, actors, like even people that were extras that are now, dude, I have friends that I met on set that were extras that are now in the spotlight, like celebrity status. And I'm like, wow, dude, we met at the fucking Crafty, you know, like we met at Crafty doing, you know, grabbing bananas and like, you know, some oatmeal, like, hey, what's up, dude? Like, oh yeah, man, we're doing background, but hey, free food. Like, we're just grateful to be there, you know?
Totally. And I think that's what's so interesting is the longer that I am out in Los Angeles working in the entertainment industry, the more I'm realizing that so much of it really is about the journey, and even more particular about that, I think it's about who you meet, the experiences that you make, the memories that you make along the way. That almost sometimes is even better than the ultimate end goal that we're actually chasing, because along the way we get to meet some of these incredible people that go on to do amazing things, or maybe we do amazing things and then they build us up, or we could work with them again in the future, or we can hire them or they can hire us. So it's, to me, I've been learning more about, hey, I'm always chasing this end goal. I'm trying to get to be this big director, writer, but along the way, I've been doing so many cool experiences with people, even though I'm not at that final end goal. And I'm starting to realize, like, even that I would be so happy with, you know?
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And that's, you know, it's important on the journey of everyone's journey to be kind to yourself and know it's not going to happen overnight, right? Like, it can be frustrating. You may even have moments where you feel you're on the brink of something ginormous. You may think it could, like, oh my God, this is it. And I've had that happen in my life many times, and the come down from it is really difficult. It's like hard to kind of come back to realization, like, oh wait, that wasn't what I thought it was, and I just need to pick myself back up and go knocking on doors like I was just doing. It's okay. And actually look at all these things I learned from those moments.
For sure. Yeah.
Even if they were small, you know, like
totally.
You look at this latest short film that you did, and this is something, you know, I really want to bring attention to because just even the way I found it was how we reconnected was very odd too. And it was over TikTok of all things, right?
I never thought I'd be saying thank you to TikTok.
Thank you, TikTok.
Thank you, TikTok. Seriously.
Like, oh my God, I know, right? Like, it's funny because I resisted the TikTok movement for a long time. And you know,
me too.
TikTok it has its benefits. It's how you use it. It's a tool, you know? And
100%.
I was browsing on TikTok, and you and I have contact together through Instagram or whatever app, and you know, TikTok in their creepy own ways is looking at everything you're doing and says, hey, your buddy Jordan just did this really cool trailer. You should check it out because you're into film. And I'm like, watching this thing, I'm like, I was like, holy shit, this was good. Wait, I know this guy? Wait, Jordan. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, bro, I am messaging you right now. Like, dude, I just saw this trailer, and like, this is phenomenal. Like, just the trailer. I hadn't even seen the film. And I already knew I was going to love the film. But, you know, I'm also, by the way, my friends know this about me. I am not a fan of trailers, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, because most people that cut trailers,
yeah,
they tend to like overspill.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that's so true.
I got the best parts of the movie, and that
Right.
wasn't, it's like, dude, wait, I don't have to see the film now? I think you did a great job at the trailer. It enticed me.
Thank you so much.
So Jeffrey, have you ever had a professional cuddling session before? Hey, that's okay. There's a first time for everything. Who referred you?
Yeah, she's wonderful. She's so warm.
Cuddle Buddies for life.
Cuddle Buddies for life. So I'm going to invite you to just lay down beside me. Fiona, would you like to try a cuddle? This right here, this vulnerability, that is what makes you a strong man.
Yeah, I just don't understand why he's trying to take her from me, because she's ours, Linda. She's both of ours.
Introducing Mr. and Mrs. Spencer, ladies and gentlemen, right?
I love you.
I'll always be here, honey.
We're the best Cuddle Buddies ever.
Yes, we are.
I love you, Mommy.
Cuddle Buddies for life.
Cuddle Buddies for life.
Even cutting a trailer for anything is an art form, because it's so much of building an interest in even what angle you're trying to market the project as. Because sometimes a certain film might be, the trailer might make it look like a very different movie than it ends up being.
That's
and
true,
some of that's
too.
strategic, but to me it's so interesting at going in and thinking about, okay, what parts of, especially with a short, there's even less to choose from. So you go, okay, what are the crucial things that need to be shown in the trailer? Do I include certain voiceover parts that are taken out of context to also kind of help give exposition and do so economically? But is this trailer giving the best representation of what this kind of piece is as a whole? And that can be really hard. So I'm really grateful to hear that you like the trailer, because that was something that I think was arguably one of the harder things to cut, because I knew it needed a trailer, and I knew I wanted to have a trailer that I could go out and market it with and put on social media platforms and everything. And it one thing I'm so grateful to also kind of think about when I think about TikTok and how we reconnected is the fact that I was wrong about TikTok not being able to do anything good for me. And I think that was a really good way to kind of release my judgment and realize I am wrong so many more times throughout my life than I like to admit. And I think that's good to just sometimes realize, oh, I misjudged that thing. And actually it brought us back together, which is such a beautiful thing. And you were able to see my film as a result, which to me makes me so grateful. And it was just another avenue for you to come into contact with the work.
Oh, it's great.
One thing I've really been trying to, as a creator, but also as a person, these last couple years is really go into even more situations with an open mind and let go of the preconceived judgment I have. Even if I have it, realize that I don't have to stick with that, and it's okay to let it go, and to try to let it go and challenge that, because some of the most beautiful things in my life have happened when I've totally just given a thing a chance, and realized, hey, that first initial reaction, if I had listened to that, I would have missed out on so many things, including probably doing a film about professional cuddling, because my first initial judgment on it when I first learned about what it was, probably about 6 years ago, was to judge it as something that was silly, it was dumb, it was maybe a front for something else. I mean, I think I really did look at it and I went, that's crazy, that's wild. And I think that's what a lot of people
what
think.
could a cuddle buddy be, right? Like there's, I mean, even just saying the word, let me back it up just a bit, because I want to give the audience a kind of a front to also know what we're talking about here, is that you created this film. It is called Cuddle Buddies.
Yeah.
So And I had no idea that a cuddle buddy was a thing. I had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
You're already starting to go into it. I just wanted to give the audience a clue into that this film you made with the trailer was called Cuddle Buddies.
Yeah.
And when you hear this, like, okay, so let's go into the premise real quick. So I'll let you kind of dive into that as well.
Yeah. So I can kind of give the basic log line that usually I would pitch the project with. And so the log line of Cuddle Buddies is it's a short film that's a drama about a single mother named Lucy who works as a professional cuddler for a living to provide support for her clients who she cuddles with, but also to take care of her young 6-year-old daughter and alleviate the loneliness within herself, and to also retain full custody of her daughter in the ongoing custody battle that she's in with her ex-husband over the young daughter. So,
wow.
Yeah,
what a like a deep log line. Like what a great. You know, one of the things that's missing in today's film and TV shows and all this is just this rich life that's happening. You know, it's like so caught up in the special effects, so caught up in the
completely right
cuts. And you know, on my other podcast I was talking about Transformers. It's like,
that's right.
It's like you go because it's like you're just on a ride, and like after you're like, did I like it? I kind of did. There were some moments, but like, where's the real life to it? Like I just you know.
Well, and the reality is when you think about it, when you have a film with a lot of visual effects and a lot of elements that's what I call it, you know, CG it's generated in the computer. It is a dehumanizing factor, I think, because those are not often things that actually were captured on a set. They were created later.
That makes sense.
And I think it's no wonder that sometimes as an audience, if we have a film that's full of CG and VFX, even if it looks good, and we see it in every scene and every shot, and it's most of the frame, I think it does make us feel dehumanized to the movie and the story and the characters. And I think that was one of the biggest things I was chasing when I set out to make this short film, Cuddle Buddies, was what is the human factor? What is one thing that really uniquely makes us human that no other thing can bring to us, that no other type of machine or electronic or thing that we see can you know, remind us that we're human of, and that really is touch, you know, human touch.
Dude.
And that's when it kind of dawned on me after learning about the profession and kind of realizing, oh, there's nothing more human than touching another person that I can think of, right? And feeling something as a result of that. That to me was really what kind of made the whole idea of people doing it for a living a really interesting premise, because then all the questions started popping up in my mind in terms of why would people do it for a living? Who are these people who would do it for a living? Who would hire a cuddler, and why? And why was there even a need for this job to have been started in the first place? Like, where did it really start?
Yeah, and
that's
in the
what
pandemic as well. You just released this film after one of the most dramatic events in human history that we all can recall, which is the pandemic. And this lack of touch, the lack of human contact, the lack of interaction. Like, what does that do to a society? What does that do to relationships that are too close? How does it break? How does it cause people to question their reality, question their dynamics, question relationships, you know, and pull away from each other, or like need affection but can't get it? Like, maybe you're too close, maybe you're too far. And sure. You know, you're touching on something very interesting, which is like, I don't want film to get too CGI, because you're saying
for sure
you're going to lose the human touch. It's like, dude, if something is making food, it's not the same as like a cook, like a chef putting his hands in this food, like really giving it that human touch, that human love, rather than a machine making a McDonald's burger, right? Like, press it, here you go,
line, and then it's passed down.
The ingredients aren't fresh. Like, you know, when you have like fresh pesto, you know, like somebody, like an Italian that knows what's up, like grinding the basil leaves, you can't you can't deny that there's something that human touch is adding to it. And I love that your film does have a little bit of special effects in editing.
Yeah.
But it's so humanized just from the experience of how you're filming it.
Yeah.
What it's talking about. I think it's so important for people right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. And what was really ironic about the whole situation, and especially at the time when I did actually finish the film and when I really started to release it out to festivals and online, it really was what I would consider a creative gift from the gods, because when I first envisioned the whole film, it was far before COVID had ever happened. And what was really interesting is, as everything shut down due to COVID, that's really when I was putting the finishing touches on the post-production and editing the film. And what was really interesting is, as we all were walking down and getting distance, and we were isolating, and we were staying away from each other, and the last thing that we were told to do was touch, because we could catch the virus. That's when really the isolation factor to me became very apparent, and it made me aware that, oh wow, I can't even imagine how many other people are feeling isolated and feeling disconnected, feeling the lack of touch because we're not supposed to go outside and touch people. And that's really when it made me realize, oh wow, like, this really is hammering home why touch is important, why this work really is important. And thankfully I was able to kind of use that and angle the film to really hone in on why that touch is so important that we showcase in the film when we haven't had it. And it's really, sometimes, you know, they always say, like, you don't really appreciate something until it's gone. And I think this was really very much a case for that, where I think a lot of us realized, dang, we needed those people in our lives. We needed that touch. We needed people to hug. We needed people to be there. Even just platonic touch, right? Which is what professional cuddling is supposed to be, is still valuable, because there's a lot of health benefits physiologically, but also, you know, mentally. When you establish contact with another human being, it releases a chemical called oxytocin, which they often call like the cuddle chemical. It makes you just feel that much more relaxed, connected to the person with you. It reduces your stress levels, and it makes you just feel more at peace, almost like you've just done a meditation session or done a massage session.
Wow. And
so it's interesting that there really is science behind professional cuddling, and touch in particular is good for a person on a scientific level. And when you take that away and you have a lack thereof, that is also detrimental to your health. And that's what they call touch deprivation.
Yeah, you can imagine what that could do to an individual if, you know, say they go through a breakup, or maybe they're just having a hard time connecting with, you know, the gender that they are connected to. And they don't have a relationship. Maybe they go 5 years without real contact, or they don't prioritize it, right? Like, let's say you just like, oh, well, I'm going to do me, and I'm not going to worry about getting into any kind of touch or relationship.
Yeah.
That could really negatively affect you, especially if you don't even have, you know, a close friendship or family, friends. There's a whole world that, you know, your movie is opening me up to, and just even through the pandemic that I'm learning.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. And I appreciate that you, took the time to watch, but also were open to wanting to learn more about it. And I think for me too, undergoing the making of this film has been one of the greatest rewards of my life so far for anything. And I think because it forced me to really learn about this world and want to, so that I could do it justice on screen, and I could portray it as accurately as humanly possible. And I think that was such a great process for me, because going through actually doing a session with a real cuddler before I finished the script was so crucial. I hired a cuddler. I found a lady.
Let's highlight this. So So you want to know what this Cuddle Buddy thing is.
Yeah.
And you find, so what's your process with this? So you're like, you've created, because I do want to go back and know about where did this conceive?
Where
did this happen? I want to know your process, like what you're going into right now. You hired a Cuddle Buddy therapist, essentially, right? Are they considered therapists?
They're not on a technical level, but they oftentimes when they're in a session, they can play therapist. They can function in that role to some degree.
But they don't have a PhD.
No, and I don't think any cuddler would tell you, "Hey, I am a therapist." I think it's just they can talk to somebody and comfort them in a way a therapist might in certain situations. But they're definitely not broadcasting. They're a licensed therapist. They're not telling clients that, and that's not what they're advertising. So, but it was for me. I think I realized if I'm gonna make a film about a community of any kind, I have to dive in with both feet first.
And let me say, too, I respect that so much because a lot of people don't know what goes into the work of being an actor, being a director.
Absolutely.
You got to do the work. Like, go look at Daniel Day-Lewis. Like, he doesn't just show up on set and say, I'm a carpenter.
No, he
gets
prepared.
His hands dirty.
Yeah.
He knows the life in and out. He knows how to make it. Like, what is it? Inside and out.
Yeah.
And I really respect that as a director, you're doing that process because not all directors are going to go put themselves in the fire. Let's be honest. Right?
That's true. That is true. And I think that was a big leap of faith for me to even do the session, because I had to ask myself, when I really started thinking about if I was going to do this film or not, and I was still putting together script ideas and kind of formulating what was the story, what was this world. I had to be honest with myself, and I had to basically ask myself, am I willing to do a session? Am I willing to go and be a spokesperson for this work and speak positively about it and correct people if they don't know what it is, and if they are misconstruing what it is? Am I willing to kind of go out and be somebody who can defend this work, but also know I've done the research and make this my life for at least a year or two or more, and it took me a little bit to accept it, and then I did. And once I accepted, though, I had that moment. I went, okay, I am doing this, and I'm going to do it right. There's no chance where I go through and I skimp on the research and I do a parody of what I think the work is. I have to do this right. And so
absolutely, because this is a judgmental subject. Like,
totally,
it's easy to
very much
hear it and just immediately go, Cuddle Buddy. Like, what?
You're like a professional cuddler. What?
Yeah. Like, they show up and cuddle. Like, it really it is hard to take a seat back from immediate judgment and be like jumping to conclusions. So I think that's what's so fascinating about this world is you're showing a nuanced. This is very nuanced, and if you do it wrong. You can also shame a whole group of people that are like, hey, this is like really helping people. Like, you don't know.
Yeah, right.
I could have had this suicidal person.
Right.
And we got them into a healthy place through this. They actually went and sought therapy on the side as well. It just got them to the route of coming back to human connection. I mean, we're in a world right now where there's shootings and things happening. It's just disconnection.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
So this is a nuanced thing, and I really respect that you're taking the time to make sure. Okay, let me understand this, because.
Yeah, thanks, man. And that's what's really interesting is the very first draft of the script when I first wrote it was a comedy, and that was before I had done the research and I had done the cuddle session with the real cuddler, and so I think once I did the research and I did actually do a session, and I cuddled with this amazing woman named Jean Franzblau, who owns her own practice called Cuddle Sanctuary in Santa Monica. Once I actually did a session with her and I asked her a lot of these questions, and she knew I was doing a film, and what she told me about the work and how many different types of people she's been able to benefit and help and just provide support for. That's when it dawned on me that this cannot be a comedy. This needs to be a drama. And that totally shifted the script 180. I went from comedy, and because it was a comedy, I think I was trying to make a parody of what I thought it was by poking fun at it and making it out to be something that was really funny and goofy. And when I realized the nature of some of the clients that hire cuddlers, it was kind of like you were saying. It was like some of these people they're divorced, or they're widowed, and now they're lonely. They're older people. Sometimes they're PTSD victims or former soldiers. Sometimes they're veterans. Sexual assault victims or rape victims. And this is the first time that they are in a place that they're reestablishing touch with anyone.
Wow.
In a place that feels comfortable and non-judgmental for them. And so once I realized, wow, this is a lot of who the clientele are. This is really important work. And I really believe it's important work now. And I want to communicate that to other people through my film, but also just when I tell them about it. But I want to really treat this as delicately as possible. And that's when it became a drama. This is very serious work, and it's very important work, and I don't want to poke fun at it, because that could totally send the wrong message, right? But I think what was really fun, and this was one thing that was really great, was working with Jean, who ended up actually coming on to be the creative consultant, actually was able to come to set and advise, and she was our on-set intimacy coordinator, which she taught me what that position even is, because that's a newer position in the film world.
To make sure everyone's on board.
Yeah, to really be that.
Hands are going to be here.
Yes.
Because it can get wild. As an actor, you don't,
Totally.
You guys maybe talk, be you don't.
Yeah.
And maybe your actor is having one of their days where they want to try something fresh to be in the moment, and you're like, yo, I was not. So things can go really wrong, and you gotta be careful on set. It's lawsuits can happen real quick.
It's true, and the nicest thing too for actors is the intimacy coordinator position is supposed to be a liaison between the actors to the rest of the production. So they're the people who really are the ones who find out what's the nature of the scene. Are there very intimate scenes? Are they sex scenes? What is the nature of the sex scenes or the intimate scenes? Does the actor need any additional wardrobe accommodations for parts?
A sock?
Exactly. Like literally though, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is the actor fully aware of what's happening? Are they comfortable? Do they need to clear set? All of those things, the intimacy coordinator actually will go to the bat for the actor for the rest of the production. So that's a position they've never really had before. So that to me, once I learned, this is something she was also training to do, was able to come onto my set to have it. So I was able to learn what this position is and how to work with an intimacy coordinator. That was really amazing. And she actually helped bring some more levity into the script, because she was able to fully realize, hey, some of these cuddle positions that actually do have names, and there's a lot of the names you hear in the film.
Yeah.
Some of them I made up just based off of what the story needed, but some of them were real cuddle positions that she uses in her practice.
Yeah, the koala.
Yeah, like koala, oxytocin hug.
Cute.
Yeah, and you know that's one thing I liked about working with her, was she said, hey, we know that these positions are silly and the names are silly. So if anything, let's lean into that, and that's where we can find our comedic bits of levity in such a dramatic film, right? With other drama happening even outside of the cuddling itself, right? There's the narrative of the family drama. So that to me was great, because I was like, I do want some levity here. I do want to acknowledge that there is some goofiness to this, but it's in the best way, because it's all part of still helping people, but they can embrace the silly and still have fun with the work. That to me was something I thought was beautiful.
You had a good word.
Yeah, so I've really been taken by this word levity.
Yes, levity.
And I think part of the reason I love it so much, but I use it in this context too, is levity to me, aside from being just kind of a lighthearted relief to a serious thing, that's kind of what it means. It really is something I think is great in very serious movies or music too. When you have a little bit of levity you can sprinkle in at the right times, I think those are things the audience really needs at those times. When they most need it, that's when you give it to them. They go, oh, I needed that little bit of relief before I go back into the storm, right? You almost have to have that calm before you go back into the dark and the serious. And I love when movies do that, even if they're really dark horror films or they're really dramatic films, there's at least 1 or 2 bits where there's a comedic moment, but it really makes you laugh because it's like this release of tension. And I think that's one thing I really tried to bring into Cuddle Buddies, especially in the cuddling sessions that happen in the movie. So one of the ways that I really tried to lean into that, with the help of Gene, our creative consultant and professional cuddler on set, was to really play into the silliness of the names of the cuddle positions. And one of my favorite scenes in the whole moments in the whole movie is toward the end of this big section where we have 2 cuddle sessions that we're cross-cutting between. At the very end, Fiona, who's the sexual assault victim, she basically says out loud, "These names are ridiculous," and then she laughs, and so does Lucy, and hopefully in turn the audience laughs also.
Oh, these names are ridiculous.
And that was something that I actually wanted to be. I don't usually always try to do this in a script, voice what the characters are thinking so directly, but in this case, it felt right for Fiona to say, "These names are ridiculous," because I think that is a line that a lot of people said to me or kind of expressed to me when I told them about cuddling or the cuddling names. I think that was a proxy for the audience thinking what we're all thinking, like, these names have names, what are they? These are really goofy. But I think that was great to lean into that and to go, hey, I see you, I know they're silly, but they're important. And hopefully at this point in the movie, when you see that, you're already on board the ride enough that you go, yeah, no, but this is special, this is important. I wanted to lean into that and show that, hey, I get it too, these are goofy, but it is important, you know, and there's still that fun factor to the work.
Yeah, and I wanted to say on that too, like watching the film, it really comes across, and it's needed because, dude, your film made me cry.
Yeah,
like legit. I watched your film. I'm like man enough to admit I watched your film twice. I was like, okay, the second time's not gonna make me cry. Made me cry again, dude. It got me at the end of the film. I was like, dude, I was like, this hit me, but. What I love about drama pieces is you gotta sprinkle in some of the relief, and you did it beautifully because, you know, you're sobbing in tears, and you're just like, oh God, thank God. Like, there's some comedy to it, there's some lightheartedness, and I was gonna touch on that too. Is like when you do make this a full length feature one day, one day, please, you've got diamonds, you got gold here. When you make it a feature one day, full length. You can even lean into it more. You know, it can have those comedic elements, like you said, where it was like, I was writing a comedy, but wait. And I think those are the most beautiful stories where it's like, oh, this had some real drama to it. It did, but like, man, there were some great moments, and those are the characters you fall in love with when you can give them that realness, that like, wow, life has flipped upside down, and it is quite, it's crappy, right? Like nothing's right. You don't know out. You don't know the way. But, oh my God, can you believe this just happened? Like, let's just laugh about it. Cause, you know.
Because it really is. Yeah, it's the absurdity of life. And I think with good art, it's able to tap into that unpredictability and that adaptability and the absurdity of honestly just being alive. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think it's what I've been really kind of enjoying as I'm just my creative journey, but as I'm going on this journey through life and getting older, is embracing the absurdity of life. And sometimes it's so absurd you couldn't have planned it any other way. You right?
Can't.
Like they say, life is stranger than fiction, right? And it's I think it's so true, and I think it's just about when it does happen, when it gets absurd, trying to go for that ride with joy and going with it and leaning into it and seeing where it takes you. And sometimes that's the best part, is if you don't know where it's leading or what's going to happen, you're actually living life to the fullest, because there's a mix of thrill and fear in the same instance. And I think making this film taught me a lot about, for one, finishing short to the caliber I wanted to make it, with SAG actors, children actors, multiple shoot days, jumping timelines, and
so many different roles too. Like when you look at the credits, like
yeah.
you know, it's not just you and like 3 friends. Like
this
is
was
the
a
real
full crew.
This is the real deal.
Yeah,
like you tackled a real film. You know, when I think about making, you know, a legitimate film, it's like you have all the pieces. You know.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think that was one of the biggest things that it ended up doing for me was, aside from having this film that's done, is I think it gave me confidence that I can finish films, I can direct, I can write, at least to some degree, and I can enjoy the process and still make something the way that I wanted to make it. And that to me was tremendous, because I think prior to that, I'd done shorts before. I'd never done any to this caliber, especially not out of college. And I think that it was all of those challenges that I'm so glad I undertook. Maybe not at the time, but looking back, I'm so glad I did undertake, because it forced me to have to figure out, okay, what do I need to do? Because I was doing a lot of producing too, just to make it happen. So you end up facing these challenges that you either figure out or you don't figure out. And I think that's one thing I've become a big fan of too, is in my work, especially as a writer and director, the nice thing about being able to write and conceive of the idea on the writing side from the get-go is I can write those challenges into the script. And I can write, hey, I want to actually do some stunts here. I want to do multiple locations. I want to have a kid. I want to, whatever it is, you can write that knowing I'm gonna have to figure it out. I'm gonna have to, you know, adapt, and I'm either gonna figure it out or I don't make it. And so, you know, the don't make it never feels like an option to me. So when you figure it out, then you go, now I have that in my toolkit. And just as an artist, as a filmmaker, now I know what to do in that situation. That's just another rung on my belt. So I'm a big fan of challenging myself, doing things that are hard, because it is scary, but it makes you better off. You have probably more impressive project. It teaches you a lot, and then again, it helps you overcome your fear. So once you do that, you go, wow, I did that with VFX, and I did. So now this next one, let's scale up. Right?
Yeah, what more can we do on the next one? I'm comfortable here, so let's raise it, because you know, just turning on a camera is some people's hurdle. Just consistency, even getting out and doing those silly short films that you're talking about, like those shorts I did back in college.
I feel very grateful that I'm in this place where I can talk about this film that I've spent so many years putting together, about such an interesting topic and a nuanced job that's very unconventional, but I think is also very important to our culture and our society, and that job is professional cuddling. And to me, the moment that I found out this was a job that people did, as a filmmaker and as a storyteller, all of the bells in my head were going off right away about the possibilities of what this could be, what we could say with this film, the fact that we could also educate people about what it is and what it isn't in the film. And I think one of the things I kind of realized by doing this film too is I've become very interested in this kind of niche of indie educational narrative film. And what I mean by that is films that are still very much indie in their budget, but they're character driven stories that really focus on people and humanity, but also cover topics that most of the general population might not know as much about. So in a way, we're still kind of able to educate, but hopefully it's enjoyable and fun and not droll and boring.
No, dude.
So I think I kind of found that, you know.
This is what I need in films. This is what I'm missing in films nowadays, is character-driven stories. It's all about the characters. It's all about the life that's happening.
Yeah, totally. And I think you're right. It's like whenever you think about our favorite films or our favorite TV shows, we're often thinking about the characters, right? Because the characters are the people that embody the story. They're larger than life characters. They're characters that are wild or crazy or brutal, or however, they're memorable. And I think people in our life that we would describe as such a character again are also memorable. And
they shape us in different ways, you know, even if it's
100%
not in a positive way, it seems, you know, it's like you go through something maybe even traumatic, but you're like, damn, that made me, that's fabric of who I am now.
Yeah, totally. And I think, you know, trying to uncover that when you're creating drama is challenging, but it's also when you get it right and you kind of nail a persona of somebody, especially one that people either know or they are that person, it's such a light bulb moment when they watch. They go, oh my gosh, I know that person, or oh, I do that too. And I think even if it's just a kernel of something that you also can relate to in that character, it's profound, and it draws you in, and it's always something that I think good movies are characterized by. And the bad ones, we don't care about the characters, right? We don't, and we never will. So
yeah, it's just a big disconnection, you know.
Yeah, totally. So it's a high compliment that I take just hearing that the characters were humane and they were lifelike and they were
fleshed out. They were, you know.
Thank you.
I do a lot of like on stage theater acting, and it's like, you got to have character development. You have to.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, honestly, just as a creator, I think I cannot stress enough too, especially as a writer, the revisions process, the workshopping process was really the crux, and it was the absolute way we were able to even get characters who had that much life on the page, and then of course having this incredible cast. I have to pay a lot of respect to this cast, because I used a friend of mine as our casting director who did a phenomenal job. Katie Ann is her name. She found us these incredible actors, and we did we did a virtual casting call, and then we narrowed that down, and then we did the callbacks in person for the second round.
Wow.
And it was just such a joy to be able to cast this film, because people, for one, it was an honor that people were like, hey, I'm really excited about this topic. I've never seen anything like this. People wanted to audition. We had so many submissions for this small indie film.
Wow.
And just even some of the people that submitted were like people that were like, oh, kind of bigger people. That's cool that they were interested.
Yeah, you're like looking at some names. You're like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, and it was just cool that people wanted to know more about it, especially in the audition room. And so it was just a joy to be able to eventually create this incredible cast. I felt so lucky to work with all of these actors. Were phenomenal. They were just absolutely incredible, and there's no way this film or the characters would have been as fleshed out, or I don't think the movie would have resonated as much if we didn't have such great people who really just gave it their all. And they had to be thrown into the fire too, of cuddling with strangers and being in these situations, and trying to also with the young actress Lorelei, she had to have a mom and look like that was her mom, and same with the mother who played Lucy.
Their connection was great. It really sold.
Yeah,
I totally bought that they were mother and daughter.
Yeah, so I really just wanted to shout out just the cast in this movie. They were phenomenal. So we had Caitlin Clare was the actress who played Lucy, the mother.
Okay.
And what's amazing is she's Australian, and I had no idea she was Australian until she broke her accent randomly in the audition room, and she is this Australian, you know, which I'm not gonna try to recreate, but it was like, what? That's your accent? Like she was.
You thought she was totally American?
Completely.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing, because in all of her tapes, everything in the room, we didn't really like talk or anything before. It was kind of, she went into it, and it was just like,
so cool.
But doing the accent, and so she was phenomenal, and we actually put her through a week-long boot camp of training with Jean Franzblau, who was our professional cuddler consultant and our intimacy coordinator on set. And she is a real-life professional cuddler who is absolutely crucial to this movie for so many reasons. Just going through the script with me, doing a session with me, making sure that all of it was accurate. And she took Caitlin, our actress, through an entire boot camp for a whole week, trained her on all of the topics and the aspects of being a cuddler. And it was amazing because by the time Caitlin hit set for those first days, and we shot the cuddle sessions on the first day of shooting.
Oh, wow.
She nailed it. I mean, she nailed down to like the way they use their voice to kind of be soothing.
Yeah, to bring it down.
Exactly. Like the way that they are in control, but they still very much like keep the client relaxed, and they know how to work and move the client so that they're never having to do too much work. If they're moving to a different cuddle position, it's very much a thing that has a lot of thought process behind it. And it was great because Caitlin essentially now has like a certification. She can, if she wanted to do this work, she has that certification now. And yeah, it was incredible. She committed. She went all the way. So Caitlin,
hats off.
She's amazing. Hire her. The other, I do just want to talk about all the actors. I'll just give them little shout outs, but Lorelei Moat was the young girl. She was, I think she was 6 years old when we shot.
Yeah.
So she's probably like cute. 8 or 9 now.
I know.
She was absolutely phenomenal.
She was so there with everyone. Like, it wasn't, sometimes kid actors, you can kind of feel them pulled off screen a bit. You know, like, you kind of feel the parents in the room or something.
Totally.
You know.
And that was the biggest thing that we noticed with her was some of the other little girls that we auditioned, they very much had a little more of like a Disney Channel kind of read or delivery, where it was like way over the top, bubbly, and they were kind of just like, they were trained to kind of almost do that. And Lorelei
almost commercial.
Right? Exactly, right. Yeah. It just felt like not grounded though. And I think that works on styles of shows, right? And I definitely don't want to like hate on that style.
Hey, Disney's a career, right?
It is, right?
Yeah.
But I knew we needed this little girl to be grounded and to have chops, and she really was engaged in the room with, thankfully Caitlin was there when we read with all the little girls, and she was listening intently to what Caitlin said. She was dialed in with her and very much was there and engaged, and so we knew that she was going to be amazing, and she was even better than we imagined when she stepped on set. Because she's a lead character, we were very scared scheduling because she could only be on set for 6 hours a day.
Yep.
Thank goodness we shot in the summer, so we didn't have to do any of like schooling. But she could only be on set 6 hours, and then she had to go because of child labor laws. So out of a 12-hour day, we have her for 6, and she has a lot of lines, and she has multiple scenes.
Yeah, and the camera's on her a lot.
Yeah,
that's a risky move as a director.
Yeah.
To commit to that and be like, okay, do we want to give the child that much camera time? Because this is a total unpredictable. Totally. She could have meltdowns all day.
Totally. And even like a kid who's great in the audition room could have a meltdown. You never know.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, they're 6 years old. What are you going to expect? I mean, they're barely figuring out like life. Like, what is, hey.
I know. And we're expecting like they need to be on, and they.
Yeah.
So I'm just grateful that we had her. She was just lovely, just a wonderful.
It really comes across on camera too.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel very blessed that relationship was really all them. I mean, I wrote it on the page, and we had lines, and it was like, if that dynamic does not work, this movie is screwed. I mean, because it's the stakes are Lucy possibly losing her daughter. Those are the stakes. And if you don't care about that relationship and those stakes, they're not going to matter. You're not going to care that Lucy's losing her daughter because you're like, well, they don't even seem like they're really mother and daughter anyway. So I knew, I was like, that has to work. If some of the other things, obviously you always want it all to work, but if you have other elements that aren't as strong, okay, but that has to be incredible. So I'm very grateful that it was beautiful to watch. And I think even on the day, we got that really incredible feeling where like you can't ever plan this stuff, but I think everybody on set was like, wow, this is amazing. We're watching something awesome as it's happening. And I was almost crying watching the monitor directing, and it was like, wow.
Yeah, those are things amazing. I want to ask you about too. Do you mind if we watch a clip and give the audience just a little
let's
taste?
Do it. Yeah.
I'm gonna pick my favorite minute of the film.
Okay, amazing. Yeah.
Let's just go into it, and then we'll come back to this and talk about what they are going through, what you're going through, because you're talking about like the tears coming up, and I'm like, that's where I was at, because you know, dude, your film got me. It got me in tears.
Oh, amazing, man! I appreciate it. Well, yeah, let's check it out.
Let's check this out.
Let's call this heartbeat.
Yeah, why is that?
Because I can hear your heart.
How does it sound?
It's beating fast.
Yeah.
Mommy,
Yeah.
is it true you might not be here anymore soon, Mommy?
No. No, I'll always be here, honey.
We're the best cuddle buddies ever.
Yes, we are. Cuddle buddies for life.
Cuddle buddies for life. I love you, Mommy.
I love you too, sweetie.
Dude, man, that was amazing. That is my favorite clip of the film. I've seen your movie, you know, twice now, and I just, that part, man, it's just so punchy, and it just like, it gets me to tears every time. It's just, there's such a raw connection between the daughter and the mother, and how sorry, what's the actress's name again?
The Caitlin Clare plays Lucy, and then Lorelei Moat plays Marina, the daughter.
Yes, and the way Caitlin as Lucy is just internalizing this raw moment of like not wanting to lose her daughter, and not just, I don't know, you know, it's like in acting, I always say it's between the lines. You don't need to say a lot. It's really like, what is she internalizing? Like, oh my God, like reality setting in. Like, I have this major problem. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's I feel so honored too that this cast was so incredible, and really too just the magic that Lorelei and Caitlin on the day were able to capture was just phenomenal. I really don't think once we got the blocking, I really didn't have to do much, and I think that was the key, was me to realize this dynamic is so good. They play as a mother and daughter, and they really feed off each other so well that there wasn't much I really had to do, and I think really what it was for me on the day was taking advantage of seeing an early takes in the rehearsal some of these organic moments that came out of them just being in character and doing things that weren't necessarily blocked or scripted. Things like when Marina, the daughter, scoots up to get closer to her mother's face was not something that was written. It wasn't the way I had planned to block it. I think she had done that in an earlier take, and I went, oh my gosh, that was phenomenal. Because it's the like whole
intimacy.
It's like the whole metaphor is she wants to get closer to her mother. She's not even close enough, and they're already cuddling, and she could get even closer, and she does. And I was like, oh my goodness, and I didn't realize that till later in the cutting room that's what that meant. And then I think really too, like you were saying, with that moment gets me emotional too when I watch it, to be honest with you, because it's the weight of the whole situation crashing down on Lucy in that one moment. And so she's laying there, she's holding her daughter is her whole world, and the stakes are that she could lose her daughter, and this is the moment at the end where you don't know the outcome of the custody battle. So there's a possible world where she does lose custody. So the whole weight of the divorce, the shattered family, probably the loneliness, the love she has for her daughter, all of those emotions are all swirling in that one moment, and they all kind of, I envision they all hit her, and that's where she's like, that tear comes down, and she's like, well, I have her, and that's all that matters, is I'm here with her in this moment. No matter what happens outside of this, I at least have her now right here with me. And that's what I also hoped the audience would leave with too, is no matter what else happens, no matter what you saw before, no matter what happens after this film cuts to black, that's what the core of the story was that mother-daughter relationship, you know? And that to me is why I also am very grateful they pulled that off in the day, because sometimes you have a moment that's scripted well, it's gonna be a good ending, and structurally, narratively, it works great, but on the day you're shooting, did the actors actually capture that magic, or
did you know that this particular spot was going to be the end of the film in your writing process, or was it something like that, like looking through all your footage you were like, oh no, this is clearly the end of the film?
Great question. It
like, is there more you shot afterwards that didn't make it?
Not for the ending. You know, one of the nice things is I'm just always a fan of book endings, and so there's in the second scene of the film, there's a moment where you first meet Marina, right? Like you first meet the daughter. The first time you meet the daughter is Lucy and Marina cuddling together. And that's where you establish who they are. That's how you establish their cuddle pinky handshake, Cuddle Buddies for life. That's where that is first super introduced. Cute. And so I knew I wanted to come back to that to bookend the film, because we it's something we introduce as a seed in the very early parts of the film. I always knew I wanted to come back around to finish it the same way.
With the pinky.
Yeah, with the pinky, with the same line, Cuddle Buddies for life, Cuddle Buddies for life.
Yep.
Those are some of the final lines I knew I wanted, because those are some of the first lines we hear them say to each other. And that was really like, what I wanted to show with that was their relationship remains constant, even amongst the storm of the divorce. The other clients, maybe her work is going to struggle, maybe Marina's in the middle of this thing. Who knows what James is going to do, the ex-husband. It's like there's this big storm raging, and the one constant that is going to be constant through the whole storm is their relationship. And that's why I wanted to end it that way, is they're always still there for each other. You know, that's why she says to her, I'll always be here, honey. You have to promise me that you know that. And I think that's that line that really solidifies, like, I'm not going anywhere no matter what. Nothing can take you away from me. And it showcases the strength of the mother's love, right? So that was another thing too, is I really wanted to focus on these two incredible women at such different ages. I thought that was really special, you know?
Yeah, and that's something to highlight too for all our filmmakers out there, directors, future writers. Creating a moment like this simple gesture, like this pinky gesture, that the like Cuddle Buddies for life, like that is so incredibly important when you're making a film, to have these hooks, like these gestures, physical representations, you know, like imagery. And for all my directors and writers and cinematographers, like, to think about that when you're making your film, because what are the images that we leave with when the film is over? And that is an image that's such a powerful, like, bonding image. And you're also calling back to the name of the film, and it just sticks it that much more. Yeah. So I just wanted to even put more highlight and mustard on what you're saying. It's just like,
thank you.
So, it can't be understated. It's so important to do that, because that really, it's a call upon. It's like it just makes the film that much more special. Yeah,
thank you, man. And I agree. I think one of the things I'm still learning, and I've learned a lot so far making films, and as a director especially, is the key, I think, is to simplify. When you think you need to add more complexity, when you need to do even crazier tracking shots with this and that, and crazier lighting and crazier effects, sometimes the key is to actually simplify. Dial things down. Focus on what's in the frame. what are people saying to each other? What are the characters expressing? What are they not saying, but what is the subtext? Right? I mean, sometimes just really simplifying, and things like the pinky handshake just being something that was like, oh, what's something I've seen before, what's something I've done. And here's another thing too that I want to be very honest about, is like that whole idea of the pinky handshake was not my idea. It was our intimacy coordinator, Jean's. And it was just a throwaway suggestion that she said one time to me, like, what if they did this?
Yeah, like a little bonding thing.
Totally. And to be honest with you, I'd already had the Cuddle Buddies for Life. That was just literally the cherry on the top of that she just suggested. And I think that's the key too, is taking suggestions when you should for the betterment of your film, and realizing when they're good and you have good collaborators around you who are tapped in, you should listen to them. And I think that makes you a better filmmaker. And I try to be more open and even honest about those things too, that I wasn't my idea, right? I mean, I'm grateful I had the sense to take the idea. But I think it's just being open to that, and then trying to be more simple and efficient with what you're saying, and honestly restraint. Like when you want to do that big tracking shot, maybe you should just do a static shot, and that'll actually look better if the content's good. And I think that's very much a film school thing of like, I gotta show off, and I gotta
what if I do this technical feat?
What if I do a one take short film? And I'm not saying that's not cool or impressive.
No, it's great if you can pull it off.
If you can pull it off, and you can pull it off well, and the content's good, that's cool.
It all has to match. I mean, the content has to match a one shot. You got to have a reason to bring your whole story into that environment.
But even then, I'll always make the case, and this is kind of a tangent, but I think that one take films are a gimmick in and of themselves anyway, because the gimmick is this is a one take film, so they can market it that way. The whole time you're trying to figure out how they did it, where the cut points are, whatever. It's always going to sacrifice a little bit of narrative integrity, in my opinion, because you're doing everything to support how do we fit it into the one take versus where do we really want to spend more time and focus. And sometimes you just need to cut away to do that. That's just my opinion.
Well, it locks you into a style. And
like
I think that's what it is.
You're committed to that.
And style, for something like 1917,
it's a good example.
It works because you're there, you're in war, and actually it works really well because you're in war, and now you know what it feels like to get deployed and be forced into every element of it. It's kind of like it feeds to that feeling of like, oh my God, I got deployed. I have no choice. Now I have a gun in my hand. Now I'm in the now I'm in the boat. Now I'm getting dropped off on the sand. Now I'm in a fight. Yeah. And that element of the one shot, actually, I loved in 1917. You know, if you get me started on one shots, but like it works so well because of the anxiety of going to war. Like once you sign on that line, you're committed. You're in it. And it almost feels like a one shot. Like your life just takes on all this stress. Like you have like these hands pushing you through, like, am I being pushed to my death?
Yeah. That's a good point. And I do think, to counter my own point earlier, it is, I mean, a one take film is closer to how we experience life as an individual, right? It's not like you cut when you walk into a room. It's like your vision, your narrative sensibility, your visual sensibility stays consistent.
Well, we're like, you're only experiencing what you're awake for. You do have dreams, so I guess that's a bit of a cut sequence if you add the dreams, that if you remember your dreams. Yeah. But our life does feel linear, right? It's like, oh, well, yesterday I did this, and yesterday before that. Yeah. But there are elements in our own lives where we have cuts, where it feels natural. Yeah. Especially even like interacting here, you know. Maybe I look at the camera, or my vision is also creating different elements here. So it's cool to talk about these, like,
well, it's true. And I think filmmaking. I think that's what every filmmaker since the dawn of cinema has ever been trying to think about, is, you know, what are ways we can more closely imitate through a camera and cuts and editing and lighting and production design and blocking. Can we imitate, in certain instances, closer to what the human visual sensibility takes in, you know, and or sometimes we want to depart from that on purpose because we don't want it to feel hyper realistic. We want it to feel like this is different. It's escapist. It's not the way we would experience.
Do you want your audience on a heroin trip or something?
Yeah,
you know,
right. And that's
everything's
like,
dreamy. Everything's you know that was it Jared Leto that did the drug film?
Requiem for a Dream.
Oh yeah, you know, it's like the whole film. You're just like in a haze with them because they want you to feel that uncomfortable.
For sure.
Like, hey, here's the disassociation.
Yes. Totally.
At all corners. I don't want my audience feeling safe at all.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's very much studying how and as we go through life, how that experience feels is good for filmmakers because then we're thinking about how to apply that to a visual medium and try to capture those feelings or those experiences more acutely and more realistically, you know, or compellingly, really. You know? And
to bring that point back to your film, you know, I think we talked about this earlier, but like you did this well because you knew that this was about intimacy. You knew this was about cuddling. It can't be wide shots all the time. It needs, you gotta be in, like in, you know, it's like we're like on like this part of their face, like it is just everything in the eyes. And, you know, it's like, and that's what you did well is like setting up the shots and, you know, with your DP, I forget your cinematographer's name. So we can give him a shout out as well.
Definitely, so Brennan Miller was the DP, and we actually met at Panavision, so the camera rental house.
Oh wow.
And what's funny is I used to work there too for a time, and even way back in those days I first started telling him about the idea, and he's like, hey man, you know, we should do this. We should shoot this. I'd love to shoot phenomenal. It. And I was like, great. And it was nice because I already knew he knew all the gear, he knew how to use it. And you know, one of the benefits of working at Panavision is if you work there for over a year, you get 4 employee packages, they call them, where it's basically a camera package that is the nicest lenses, gear you could get that's functional. And you can go out and take it for free, ride on Panavision's insurance, and it's like the greatest perk you could ever have of working
as
at
a
camera
filmmaker.
house.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had actually, I wasn't working there at the time anymore when we shot, but another big shout out to our second assistant camera, Sarah Mae Griffin. She was willing to use one of her packages for us. So part of the reason, I mean, I feel very proud of the cinematography too and what Brennan did, and just is because we use Panavision lenses, which really does make all the difference, you know. And so we shot on an Alexa Classic 2K, and we used Panavision Super Speeds, spherical lenses, for if anyone cares about lenses out there.
Oh dude, I have a ton of like photographers
good
videographer friends, and they're gonna be, you know, queuing into this podcast being like, wait, what was it? What were the lenses? What was the body?
You know, again, I've definitely stressed that, like, we shot 2K. It was an Alexa Classic, and those were some of the more simplistic lenses that Panavision has. They're kind of their standard super speed set, and they're spherical, and they just look phenomenal. And we didn't really do many other big bells and whistles as far as lighting goes or anything else, and it was I was just so pleased with looking at these close-ups from these incredible lenses, and we even had a zoom lens too. So one of the techie nerd shots that I'll shout out to during the big montage sequence, and at the end of it, where we basically recreated our own version of the zoom dolly, or what they call the Zolly, otherwise known as the vertigo shot, where it feels like space is compressing in on itself.
I love that, where they're falling away. Hands.
So what we did for that, and I'm super stoked we're talking about this because this is very interesting stuff to me.
I want to know.
So
about this.
we had a 19 to 90 millimeter zoom lens. It was a Panavision Prime compact zoom.
19 to 90.
Yes.
Wow.
So essentially,
odd dimension there.
Yeah, that PCZ, they call it, Prime compact zoom, is one of their smaller zoom lenses. Some of these other zoom lenses are yay big, and you need support rods to support them because they're that big.
Wow.
But this one is a lot more compact. And what we did is we had this platform called a skateboard dolly that was on wheels, and it was basically on, looked like a dolly track. And so what was actually really interesting is we had the camera stay static facing the actor playing James. Chris Ferrer is his name. And so we just had an angle where we had Lucy sitting just off camera as if it was her POV. And because I do love doing a good POV shot, especially with, you saw it in this film a little bit, where the actors break the fourth wall. If it's used specifically, I love it. I love it so much. I think it's great.
Especially for something like this. It's so intimate. You want to feel like one of these characters.
I wanted people... My biggest goal when I was talking to Brennan about the visual language was I want the viewer to feel like they're laying in this cuddle session with these characters. And that, again, went back to the whole theme of intimacy and staying close, tighter angles. And I'll admit, I mean, on my filmmaking journey, my favorite type of shot is a close-up of an actor. I think it's such an amazing insight into their psyche, right?
It shows the work, you know? Like,
yes.
As an actor, as somebody that's been on set and all that, it's like, there's a whole life going on. And if you're too wide, you're not going to catch all this work I did.
Yeah.
All
and like,
this
hey,
backstory.
I love a good wide too, don't get me wrong. But,
of course.
But I think the close-up is one of the biggest ways that film really distinguishes itself from theater, right? Because you're never going to be able to get that close on a stage, and for better or for worse. But it's just, that's one of the things I like about these cameras, and especially the resolution these cameras can give now. I love to see that detail in the face, and it is intimate, and a lot of times we're not that close up to somebody's face in real life. But with a camera, we're able to... It's this weird thing where we're able to be that close without the discomfort of being physically right near their face like we would in real life.
Especially with a stranger,
which is kind of what happens in this film where strangers cuddle and...
Yeah, it's like, do I know you? Like, I need a minute.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing I really wanted to tap into, is that I believe that people are very afraid of genuine intimacy. And I don't mean sex, I mean like just being intimate and close to another human being. And I think people are scared of that, myself included. And part of the reason I wanted to do this film is because I know that I'm scared of it, and I want to embrace it more, this fear, and kind of overcome that and allow myself to be more open with people. And
and that happens with everybody. It's people get hurt in the intimate relationships.
It's scary because that's really where you have to connect. Like if you are doing something else, for example, it's like you might, that's an act. It's a physical thing you're doing, but to be intimate with somebody might not be like a physical act. It's just being. You're just being with that person, and you're kind of exposed in some capacity, right? So you're almost having to be a little more vulnerable than you might be used to or want to. And that's what I liked about this topic too, is, you know, professional cuddling really kind of confronts you with this vulnerability or lack thereof, you know. So
are you able to go there even if you need it? But that's what one of your characters I loved was the you're gonna have to give me her name, but the woman that was dealing with abuse.
Oh yeah, Fiona.
Yeah, she was dealing with some abuse. That was actually the other clip I was thinking about playing for our 1 minute, because you know, shout out to Fiona, phenomenal job. She really...
Christina Pesek was actress who played Fiona. She was phenomenal.
Oh, what was her real name?
Christina.
Christina, yeah. I want to give her a shout out as well, because you know, she had a great part in this film, and just her you know, clammed up anxiety. I mean, you guys, I don't know if you did did you guys spray like sweat on her neck for some of those scenes?
No, I don't think we did.
We're gonna have to watch that clip again, because I was like, dude, she is so anxious. She is like beating sweat on her neck, and I was like, that to me, I was like, did you guys put that in makeup? Because those are the details.
That's actually amazing. I don't think I even caught that.
Okay,
so like, great eye. Wow.
On one of these breaks, we're gonna have to pull up that clip, and dude, it's just like, I felt that intensity. I was like, dude, this girl is sweating. She's clamming up because it's like, I can't deal with what I've experienced and letting somebody into that space.
How did I let this happen? Fiona, please don't blame yourself. I was violated. I'm so sorry. And you are not alone. I just feel so worthless. He did this to me. I'm so angry. Will you play with my hair?
Hats off to Christina. If you're listening, watching, this is your performance was just so real. I mean, the clamminess, the reserve, it was just like that shell of a person that can't let go. I mean, it was a phenomenal performance, and I want to hear from you. What that process was working with her and somebody in that position.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad that you brought that up too, because that even made me remember just even a lot of the initial conversations that I had with her, and even just going even further back to when we first saw her audition tape that she sent in. She was incredible in this tape, and I think maybe we looked at a handful of other audition tapes, but the moment we saw hers, me and the casting director, and then I had another friend helping me do some producing, the moment we saw hers, I went, she's Fiona.
Wow.
I don't even need to see any other tapes. It's kind of one of those moments where
I love hearing that.
Her tape was just so phenomenal. She channeled this kind of broken woman, but who still had hope within, right? And she like just was able to get there emotionally, but authentically in her tape. And I was just blown away, and I went, yes, her, amazing.
Can I ask you real quick about, because I'm so curious as an actor that's still doing self-tapes.
Yes.
And I get so, as actors, we get so lost in the woods of did I do enough? What am I doing? Am I white wall, blue wall? Do I need a black surface? How do I simplify? How do I get it better?
Totally.
What's the lighting?
Yeah.
So when you see just a 10 out of 10 banger clip like this, where you're the actress or the actor hits it so well, and you're like, that's them. Like, they did it. What is that? What's that sauce? Like, what, as an actor, what did she do? What did you see?
Those are great questions. I think for me, because I go off of from my point of view as a director when I'm looking at it, and I definitely, of course, always try to work with casting directors if I can, or people who really know casting, and also always get their thoughts too to help me make my decision. But I look for, aside from, one of the big things I look for is do they at least have some kind of physical descriptor, or do they carry the spirit, I should say, is a better way of putting it. Can they embody the soul, the spirit of this character? Because sometimes I really don't like to try to just limit to they don't have the same hairstyle, or the short hair versus long hair, or even the same skin color as how I first saw it as the writer. I try not to even limit myself to that anymore, because I want somebody who, however they look, who just has the spirit of the role. And if they can channel it, I don't really care how they look. Honestly. Yeah,
it's like general specifications. And that's what I do feel about casting nowadays, too. It's like, just commit yourself to the life you can give,
Yeah.
And you never know. Yeah, they're looking for a Hispanic, but maybe they were...
Just do your best.
Yeah, you gotta...
I think,
commit to your role.
Yes. I think the two other big things that I look for to kind of, if I were to describe what is the sauce that I look for that I always feel like has made self-tape stand out to me is the second one is are they compelling? Are they interesting and compelling to watch? And that can mean a number of different things.
Yeah.
But I think, to just give an example, when I saw Christina's tape, just as the example, it immediately, I was taken by the pauses she took between words. It clearly showed me that she was comfortable. She wasn't nervous, or if she was, she didn't seem nervous. She was very much there, felt like, in the scene, and took her time. I think one of the biggest things that I enjoy is when actors take their time in a self-tape, because you have the time to record it multiple times.
It's so hard to. You might as well
take your time, because it's always like when people are rushing through, especially in person too. And I totally understand the nerves part, having done some myself in the past. So I don't act anymore.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, settle in, take that time, be there in the scene, even if it takes a little bit extra time to watch. I would rather be present with you. So I think it's taking the time and making interesting choices, not what you think the writer wanted. Like, make a choice that's genuinely something that you can follow through truthfully, and that's just interesting. It's different. Maybe it's just a totally different way you read the line, and 9 out of the 10 actors read it this way. You read it completely different. I almost want to see that. I want to see actors who take risks, right? Even if it doesn't end up being good risks. Like, I'd rather see that they're comfortable taking risks, because they're going to also be comfortable taking risks on set and trying new things. And
that's a great way to look at it. Yeah,
so I look for that, and I think part of what makes an actor compelling to watch is, again, it's my opinion. I'm not trying to get too scientific about it, but it's like,
it's great to hear. This is awesome for actors, especially. I know so many actors out there that are just racking their brains with the 99 auditions they just got closed doors to.
Right.
Didn't book it.
Yeah.
What is something I could have done to like stand out a bit?
Yeah, I think it really is like trying to just make interesting choices, and it's a combo of like unpredictability with just I don't know, I think a real comfortability being this person, saying these lines, just kind of being present. And the thing that's tough is, I understand some sides that actors get is they're not great. They're not a lot to work with, right? And so you're kind of like, I could totally see somebody being like, well, how do I do those things with this line that I'm given, right?
And against the white wall, no actor across from you.
Right.
You want me to cry, you want me to be emotional. Right. It's like,
yeah. So my response to that would just be like, just obviously do your best, but, and again, I'm not a casting director, so I'm just saying what I look for, but I think if you aren't given a lot to work with, try to make it the most interesting and authentic that you can, but also, if in your slate, if I sense like a good, genuine energy, right, just in how they say their name, that goes a long way, because I'm always thinking about, okay, what is working with them going to be like? Is it going to be a nightmare? Is it going to be?
I've heard this before, and I've actually had trouble with this in the past, where I used to be so invested in my role, like,
oh right,
I'm playing some
right, so you played
they're casting me,
which
like,
I could see could be hard if you're trying to stay in character.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we want you to be this total asshole, bring this like energy, and then I'm saying my name like that. It's like I'm introducing, like, hey, my name's Aaron Mann, I'm reading for the role of Dave. And now they have this guy, and they're like, "Oh, is this guy is this guy a head case?
Right,
or like,
right.
what's going on with him? Like, he can't even. He's so wrapped up into being Dave and being brooding. Ooh, it's like, hey, man, we're up here. Like, you're a normal person, right? Like, we're not hiring a crazy person, are we?
I think it's like, I mean, again, if anyone's asking my advice on like, just what. Because I've been in that room a lot, just, looking at actors doing auditions, or I've looked at a lot of self-tapes, and I've even seen higher level execs do that too on certain like reality shows and everything that I've just helped film, and it's you know, so much of it comes down to, can you at least build a connection in that room before and after you actually do your read, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that goes a lot further than you would ever think.
Yeah, because you can, you know, say you get somebody that's a joyful, or you're like, oh, I got a chemistry with them.
Yeah.
Now you got something you mold, right? You can like use as clay. Like, I don't know what it is about him. He doesn't have a lot of credits, or I don't know what it is about her. Like, let's not even look at her IMDb. I feel there's something that can happen in the room where I can build that. I know I can shape that to what I need. Yeah. And that's more important than somebody just coming in, hitting one of those, you know, those like YouTube auditions where you're like, oh my God, they had it. Yeah. They had it from minute one. Yeah. They were there. Like, have you seen like Aaron Paul do his audition for Breaking Bad?
Oh no.
Oh my God. I wish we could like pull it up for the audience.
He's just automatically Jesse.
Dude, he's Jesse. He's Jesse from moment one.
Some people also are kind of just born to play certain roles, but I think
even Bryan Cranston,
good
right?
Audition. Yeah, totally.
He's like the dad in everything else.
Malcolm in the Middle dad.
But then all of a sudden he brings in this rich character that he was just meant to play, and it's like, you know, as an actor, that's something I'm trying to find in my work as well, where it's like, I almost don't care anymore. You know, I'm getting to that point.
Yeah, and I the other thing too, if I were to say like anything else too, like two things is, first one would be, I mean, I know there's, you know, if anyone's just trying to book work, they're submitting to probably a lot of things. I think it's a good idea to submit to things you genuinely care about, like projects that you actually have interest in or think you will, roles or descriptors that you really just think are interesting to you, because I guarantee it's going to make it easier to invest in that part and do the prep work. And the second thing I would say to piggyback on that is prep, you know, like really, and I know sometimes these things come up last minute, so
oh my God, dude,
you know, that's why I'm trying to give a lot of these caveats, because I don't do self-tapes anymore, so I'm not going through this reality. But the prep work shows, and I think when you've seen that somebody's really given their time and tried to make that time to read, like, and sometimes it's interesting, and it makes a world of difference, because I had some friends read for some of the roles for Cuddle Buddies, because I figured, you know, hey, I know some actors from college.
You guys have a good connection.
Yeah, and I'm like, I always want to try to at least give my acting friends a chance too.
That's respectable too. I appreciate that, because there's a lot of friends I have where I've seen them make films, and I'm like, hey, there was a role that seemed, I mean, maybe I'm being biased because I'm trying to internalize what I could play. I'm like, I feel like I could have at least read for it, you know?
Yeah, totally. Even though at least given the chance to read.
Yeah.
So I really always try to do that. If I'm casting something, I want, you know, try to give people a chance to go, hey, like, maybe, like, especially if you're of the somewhat of the descriptors of the, you know, age, character description, etc. I at least want to give you a chance to see what you can do. And some of my friends really have run with it and put a lot of time and effort, and some haven't at all. And I'm not going to call any of those friends out, but some of the friends who did audition even for Cuddle Buddies, I could tell they really didn't. It felt like they just did it last minute, filmed it real quick, and that was it. And I was like, oh, okay. So like, it's just a big world of difference for the people that stood out, that made the final cut for the callbacks. Were all people who clearly put time and prep in, and you know. And another example I'll give too, just for how we cast Caitlin, who plays Lucy. Yeah. Because that obviously is a pivotal role, and we saw a lot of good options. So that was tough. There was a lot of good options to choose from. Why Caitlin stood out to me was she nailed the voice early on for the soothing way.
Yeah, just having
Lucy talk to the clients, right? She had already had this great understanding of how to use her voice, how to communicate that. I felt like she was talking to me, like soothing me, and she took her time with every scene she did, and she nailed it. She channeled the energy very early on, but I think it was because she really had the voice and the look and was about the right age, and she really took her time with each each tape, and I loved that. And I think she even had, like, she was grabbing someone's hand off camera as she was doing the read. So that was great, because it wasn't her, like, standing in front of a wall. It was she was sitting in a chair against the table and, like, grabbing someone's hand,
building a connection.
Totally. And I felt that. And I
was
think we
the
all
hand
felt that.
in frame?
I think the if I'm remembering correctly, the person reading with her's hand was just right here and just at the edge of frame.
See, that's a risk.
It is a risk, because you're like, oh, it's somebody's hand, but it
built that real raw touch.
It did, and it
see, that's an actor
it really made
choice.
her stand out. Totally,
I would never think to do that.
Yeah,
and that's something where I'm like, of course. Why would you not audition like that? This is a intimate film.
Yeah.
You know, she's playing that motherly role. Like, I just feel that motherly role. I feel like she's talking to me. I feel like she's soothing me through what all these people are experiencing, the loneliness.
Yeah.
You know, it's
and she also
beautiful.
channeled the rage. Like, one of the sides I remember we had was there's a moment in the film early in the film where she gets the call from the divorce lawyer. She hangs up and she screams, "Fuck you, James!" Really loud and raw, and I knew that was a moment I wanted it to really land and be intense, right? Like this intense moment, possibly even over intense, you know. But she was able to also nail that, and I had her do it in the room. I was like, "Hey, can you scream? Are you comfortable, like, do it?" And she did it. And I think everyone else in the casting room in different rooms was probably like, "Oh shit, what's going on in there?" Yeah. But she brought it. Like, she really went there and screamed as loud as I asked her to, and it was exactly what I wanted. So I also knew, on top of the motherly side, she was able to channel this passionate woman who possibly is going to get her daughter taken away, and she is pissed. She's becoming mama bear, like, back off. And
that's
that
fiery.
Intensity I also knew was something I loved about Lucy as a character, but the actress had to be able to channel too. So I think really, like, if you have things that are dualities in a character and you're the actor reading that, go for broke on both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Showcase your life.
Go for it.
Use
right?
it.
Yeah, and I think too, don't be afraid to just make crazy choices. Honestly, like.
Well, even when you're describing all these roles, you know, it's just out of the box thinking. You know, like, how can I make this a little personalized?
Sure.
You know, how do I just amp it up even? Yeah. Like, hey, let me invite somebody over. You know, a friend, girlfriend, boyfriend. Let me just hold your hand. Can I hold your hand?
Yeah.
Like, build that.
For sure.
That's real. Now you're connected. Now you're like, because now you're building a connection to the movie, which is, I'm going to be touching people, strangers. I'm going to be cuddling strangers. I'm going to have a daughter that I'm meeting this little 6-year-old girl for the, you know, it's like, you got to get into all these different aspects of Lucy. And it's like, what is a quick way you can get to human connection?
Yeah. And one other thing I'll note too, to Caitlin's credit. And I mean, I already knew I wanted to go with her as Lucy, but she sent me a message on Instagram and just said, because I think she found, like, the film's page. We had an Instagram for that and everything. And she messaged me and said, "Hey, I don't want to put any pressure on you or anything like that to make your call, but I do a lot of self-tapes. You know, even if I don't get it, that's totally cool. I just want to let you know I really fell in love with this side and this story and you know, this character. And I this has been one of the great audition experiences in my life." And when she said that, I was like, oh my God. I mean, that helped solidify it, but I think it's just, no matter
got their
what,
heart in it.
That, like, that did a lot, because even if I didn't go with her, I would definitely be like, wow, that was awesome. Like, that was really cool of her to reach out and
well, it's genuine too. She's not just kissing ass, right?
No,
like,
I could tell it was so heartfelt, right? And she meant it, and
I love
she
that.
took the time to find my page, find me on Instagram, reach out, and so I just think that's great. And that was kind of going back to what I'm talking about with building that connection outside of actually doing the audition and the read. That is huge, right? If you can do it, you know. Dude, sometimes you don't always get that time, but you know.
Yeah, there's this, I booked this film called Guitars and Guns. I'm still waiting for it to come out. It's like,
oh man, that's an awesome title, by the way.
Dude, it's a badass title. Like, dude, I got shotguns in the game, or not the game, the shotguns in the movie. I'm like killing people and a rock star, and I'm on stage and. Dude, I auditioned for like a small part in the movie. I auditioned for the drummer. And I'm telling you, I took those sides home, and it was 120 pages, and I read all 120 pages. And I came into I came into the audition the next day, and I said, I auditioned for the drummer. And I said, hey, Robin, I know you guys already have somebody they already had somebody picked, like 99% going with another guy for the lead singer of the band. Yeah. He said, Aaron, I got this guy. He's already locked in. We've worked with him before. I know him really well. Sorry, man, the lead. I'm like, look, I respect that, but I read your entire script, and I'm telling you, I am this guy. Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind. Like, you got to let me audition for this. He's like, all right, well, we'll throw on one of the songs. My audition was just pretending to play the song and lip syncing and committing to it and being the rock star in the front lines. And man, when he hit play, it was like nothing else existed. I was a fucking rock star. I was there. Dude, I just, I was on the ground. I was like, doing all the moves. It was like I put on a performance, and he turned off the play. The song was done. He was like, man, do you mind if I have you read some lines? And like he pulled out.
Wow, it's amazing. You always want to get him like, well, let's try this too.
Okay, wait.
Just do one more thing.
Okay, I got a scene with this girl. Okay, your love interest. Let's try that. So it just kept compounding, and he kept giving me new scenes, and we started to build this connection. With him and I, because he felt the rawness. Like, I have the front man right in front of me. Am I going to push him away because something's telling me that this is what's meant to be? Yeah. So long story short, I ended up booking this lead feature, and I'm so excited for it to come out.
Dude, that's amazing. I can't wait to see it.
Thanks, man.
And I think what's awesome about that story is you went out on the limb and really took the initiative to just go, hey, I know that I could do this role, so just give me a chance. And you fought for it. You didn't
I did.
You didn't just
go,
the room. Oh, you're right. Like, you fought for it. And I think anything in life that's worthwhile is worth fighting for, including any kind of artistic opportunity.
You do. You got to feel it, though. You can't fake it. Like, I've had plenty of roles where I'm like, oh, yeah, that would be cool, or I like it. Right. It was not like this. I'm telling you, there was something deep.
You knew that you were this character.
Yeah, it was a deep fire in my chest. It was like, I was like, oh my God. I was reading all these lines. I was like saying them out loud. I'm like, this is something I would say. It just was this bond. I could not feel, like, I could not even really, it's hard to describe, but it was a bond to the script's fabric. Yeah. And when I came in to read the roles, you know, like other roles, you feel like you're checking lines. You're like, what was my line? Yeah. I didn't need none of that. I looked down. I knew.
That's amazing.
It just was meant to be. So I think as actors, it's cool that we're talking about this, because it's something to pay attention to. Like, find those passionate roles and really dig into those. There's gonna
be. I really think so, because I think it shows too. Like, when I see somebody who just was like submitting and they just kind of were doing it to do it, and there wasn't this extra level of investment there. I think it shows, and it's like, yeah, you might as well just, if you're gonna put that much time into prepping and being vulnerable to audition and putting yourself out there, you might as well do ones you really feel and care about.
You gotta love it.
Yeah.
Why are you in it? I mean maybe you get hired on some cool stuff. There's nothing wrong with commercial acting. Hey, totally. Shout out to all my people that are out there just getting the bills paid. Yeah. But also, like, don't lose that. Like, why are you in this?
Yeah, like the real ultimate goal, like the target you set out for, right?
Yeah. What do you feel? Because those roles are out there, and they will align to you when you're ready. Like, I look back at that moment. I was ready for this rock and roll role. I had been doing a lot of music. I had been like practicing a lot, and I had even said those kind of words in conversation, like, sometimes I just miss the stage. And then all of a sudden I'm in a rock and roll movie where I'm on stage. They have a fake audience, but like, it's like I'm realizing my vision. I'm realizing my dream. You got to set those things up in your mind to start to align yourself. And I'm sure, we're talking about Lucy's role here, where it's like, there's I'm sure if she was sitting right here, she'd talk about all the alignment for her.
I know. I would actually love to like hear more about, because unfortunately
I would love to.
We shot, I think we got together at least like once since then, but I didn't get a chance to really go even further to debrief her experience from the other side of like, what did you do? What did you think of when you were approaching the role? And then once you got cast, what did you do after that? And that to me is always very interesting too.
Hey, I'm open to it if we want to get Lucy here.
I know. I was like, maybe I could.
We got the setup, dude. We just set up this.
Caitlin, shout out. Caitlin's amazing. Yeah. She also just did her own short film that she acted, wrote, and directed.
Oh, she did the whole thing?
Yeah, they shot in Alaska. Like, she had a whole full-on thing. And so, yeah, it was very cool that she went on to do that. And they're in post right now, so. Phenomenal. Shout out to After This is the name of the
After
movie,
This,
so.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we can get her on, you know. When you're embarking on difficult projects and you're doing things that matter, and it takes a lot of time and energy, and they can become stressful because you care so much, I think you're doing yourself a favor to pick ideas and topics that you care about, but also pick people that are passionate about the work and being thorough and are good, and they also want to work on the project. They like the idea. They want to help you make something better if you can. I mean, I know there's limitations to all this, but I think that if you have the ability to kind of pick those people, you're just doing yourself a favor, right? Because for me, my whole approach to making films, making art, is explore every avenue and then pick the best one. But that takes a lot of time. It's also very frustrating at times and maddening. But to give an example.
Experiment.
Yeah, totally. Like, to give an example, like, once we finished shooting Cuddle Buddies, I edited the film myself, which I don't know if I would recommend doing that, or we'll do that fully again in the future.
That's another thing. Yeah, I would love to talk to you about. I was looking at the cards at the end of your film, and I was like, colorist. He did it all.
Oh, yeah. I'm probably going to outsource that more, too.
Dude, no, I thought the color looked great. Thanks, I just was surprised. I was like thinking of all...
Yeah, it's like a one-man show that was
man. I'm just thinking about all the elements that I'm like pulling my hair out. Like, I can't... Editing's the hardest thing, right? Because it's like, how do you clip it down to 15 minutes? You know?
Yeah, especially
you love everything you shot.
Yeah, that was... I mean, editing was... it was... I mean, there was no part of this film that was easy. There wasn't. I wish I could say, like, any part of it was smooth. It was not.
Yeah.
The smoothest part was watching it in film festivals.
Yeah, you're like...
Once it's done, because it's been done. But
you made it to the finish line, you know? Like, that's a huge thing. And also, if you revisit it, which it sounds like you are going to revisit it for a full-length feature.
Yeah, so I'm back in the world fully as we speak. You know?
That will cut up a lot of that trial and error, because now you're
That's true. It's had so much development time. One of the great things about that is I'm very familiar with the characters, but also the tone and the world of the story, what I'm trying to say with it.
Yes.
A lot of what changes between short to feature is just, I mean, obviously, what are you going to spend more time now showing because you have more time? But,
which I'm curious about. I don't want you to give too much away, but I'm
I'm
already thinking about the world of like,
right.
what would I go, like, what relationships do I want to flesh out, you know, as an audience member?
So in regards to where the whole project stands at the moment is, I'm currently undergoing revisions of the script for the feature. So once, it was funny because I never planned to make the short into a feature. I had always envisioned it as a short, and I thought it was going to live and die by the short. And then once the short was done, I was going to move on with my life to a different project. And what happened was, after enough people seeing it, friends, but also people at festivals.
Yeah, industry.
Yeah, like one of the biggest compliments that I received was people asking me what happens next and expressing that they wanted to know.
It's amazing
what happens next. And after hearing that a couple times, it finally started to dawn on me. Oh, okay. So there's clearly some interest here from people who've watched it. So I think it could work as a feature. I am trying to build my debut feature as a writer-director. And it finally started. It took me a long time to realize and really put my energy back toward the world. Mainly because I'd spent so much time with it. I partly was kind of rebelling. I was like, I need to be in another. And thankfully I did. I went on. I directed a different horror short.
Sometimes you need feature. That's fine.
Yeah, and I needed to explore a different territory of a different genre to bring me back to it, I think. Because it was almost like a break. And then coming back into it, I was even more fired up because I remembered how much I loved this world, spending time with these characters that I feel like I know at this point. Yeah. And I really was starting to get excited about, okay, what else? There's so many possibilities. What do I show? What can I show? And so I finished the first draft of the full feature script about 2 months ago.
Oh, wow.
And
congrats.
Thanks. Thank you. That was
yeah, that's locked off. Yeah, it took a while.
Yeah, so that in and of itself was definitely a tricky writing process. There were parts of it that didn't feel so tricky, and there were some that were completely new territory. Those were the hard parts.
Yeah, what lives do you go into? Do you go into the guy with his wife that doesn't have that connection anymore? You know, do you?
Yeah,
do you make more cuddle buddies? Do you show the cuddle buddies of who are her coworkers that hire her, or her friends that do the same business? Like, dude, there's so many places you could take the story. Yeah,
so I think that, you know, the two things I'm really interested in. Again, this could change because it's very much still like,
of course,
subsequent passes. We're in workshop mode right now.
That's great.
You know, which again I'm a firm believer in is so crucial. Is good feedback, multiple revisions. That's why scripts that are great, I think, take years sometimes.
Some of the greatest stories. Yeah, you hear about it. You're like, that was in pre-development for 8 years,
which sometimes can feel really maddening when you're just working on the same project for a year and people are still working. And you're like, yes, yeah, I am, because it's what it takes.
But it can be magic. You never
and
know.
It has to be great. And I think that's going back to that same philosophy I talked about of art. Of I have to try every avenue till I know it's perfect or as close to it as I can get. Being a perfectionist, like I just know that's how I have to work. I have to know before I commit to something, you know. And being a commitment phobe, I just know that, like, if I'm gonna do something that requires this much time and energy, and it's gonna be my debut feature as a director writer, my first real thing people are gonna judge me by as a filmmaker coming onto the scene, it needs to be perfect, or as close to it as I can get. It needs to be amazing. And I think if I give it the time, I think it can be that. I think if I rush it, it won't be that. So would I rather get this movie, like the script done and like shot like this year? Of course. But I'm respecting the process and realizing that's all to the film's credit to be a better film, right? And I think that's why it took a long time to get the short made, because I didn't just want to shoot it for $5,000, $6,000, $1,000. I wanted to shoot it for higher, and I wanted to make it look good, and I wanted to make sure the story was developed, and I was saying what I wanted to say with it. And so I think all those things were worth it. And yeah, it takes years of your life, but I think quality over quantity totally.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you got key, 15 minutes that, like, that's the perfect thing is what you said earlier, which was like, what happens next? Like, you have the audience already wrapped around like these characters and who they are, and like, that's what I couldn't help. I mean, you got me crying in 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see now the full hour and a half. I want to see the 2 hours because I care that much. You know, like Lucy.
Thank you, man.
Lucy is the mother we can all relate to. There's a bunch of characters in there that hit a broad audience, and And what's interesting is you had the intuition to go into this project before quarantine even happened.
So, thanks, man. Yeah.
And then you go into quarantine and you're like, oh, I'm on gold. I'm on gold. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea. But that's where intuition, we talk about this like weird spiritual pull. Like you just can't explain it, but it's in your heart and you trusted it. Yeah. And now that heart of the film is connecting and showing you a new path.
Yeah, thanks.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and I love the way that you described that too, where I really do think I was brought back by some kind of force to work on this as a feature, and it only dawned on me once I came back to it, almost like seeing a long lost friend, how much I really missed this and how much I still had to say with the film and in the film's world.
That's important. Like,
that was great.
I like that line of like, how much more do you have to say to the story? Because you bow tied it, but it wasn't bow tied. Like it.
Yeah, and it's so funny because and I think in some ways it's been hard because I always did just see it as a short.
Yeah.
And if I had even thought and had a little more foresight to the fact that I was gonna eventually expand it, and that was the ultimate plan. I might have even possibly, I don't know if I would have changed much or if anything, but it might have just changed my approach, or maybe I would have started working on the feature script right away, or done the feature and then just taken a chunk for the short. But I think either way it worked out the best way it needed to.
It gave you confidence.
Exactly.
Like that's all it needs to be.
It was almost like a minimum viable product in business where you're like, all right, I need to
here's the sample.
Right, here's the sample, the test of the viability of this movie is the
here's
short.
The characters, here's the heart, here's how I do, here's how my cinematographer does.
Totally.
Here's the process.
It very much was like does this film even work? Is it good? Is it
does it have liftoff?
Yeah, did I execute the story well?
Yeah, you're not in Tarantino's position where it's like last one was a banger, so now I got
totally, yeah, right.
30 mil for the next one. So
yeah, I didn't have that, confidence.
It's great to just be like, okay, what lifts off the ground? I think musicians and artists all across, somebody painting that, somebody doing something. You got to test yourself, put yourself out there, and you will get response. And that's where you got to follow. You're like, oh wait, this lifted. Wait, this did something.
Yeah,
you got to feel that. You got to sense it. And if it doesn't happen, that's okay too. Back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
But you have something special where you're getting these responses. And I watch a lot of classic film. I'm hypercritical. My roommates, my friends, they don't even want to watch movies with me anymore because I'm literally
that goes for myself.
Yeah, I'm literally watching the film, being like, no, dude, why did they cut? Oh my god, they cut again. No, why are they on this girl? Why is it the color? Wait, why is everybody red? Yeah. I will literally start I'll be like, I can't watch this. I'm leaving. Bye.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, can you just sit down and watch
it's
the
hard
film?
When you start caring and thinking about it and appreciating it, you just start to see when it's like, what? Why would they?
Yeah, so dude, I'm not blowing smoke at you. I really think you have something special, and it's not easy to put heart in film because of what you're saying, where it's
Thank you, man.
Anything can go wrong. Your 6-year-old has a bad day on set.
That's so true, yeah.
Lucy's in a relationship, and her boyfriend doesn't like that she's cuddling on set. You don't know.
You really don't know. That's why production.
Happen.
Yeah, production's such and I thank you. I really appreciate that because I really believe that if you, as the creator of any piece of art, if you have that humanity and that heart, and you give that heart and time and care to your product, almost like you would a person you care about, it will also give it back to you, but also it will give that out to the world because of what was put into it, almost like a filter. So I think I do really think about that a lot. I think, just from my perspective, even down to like the way you decide to frame a shot within a scene, or how you shot list a scene and block it. It's like, as a filmmaker, these are all just decisions that you're making, but every decision should be run through some kind of filter. And if you're really tuned in and you really know this story and you have a good idea, and you just really know how you're wanting to tell it, that's huge. I mean, I think that's just the big thing is like, what are you trying to impart, right? And what kind of feeling are you trying to give with it? And again, that word human was one that from the very early stages was one I really got attached to, of like, it's human, it's about touch, it's the most kind of human concepts you can think about. There's really not any other technological aspects or kind of things going on. And I didn't want there to be. I didn't want... There's quotes like a phone or two, whatever, but I just didn't want phones. I didn't want other stuff. I almost wanted to feel like it could exist in any era and still
That's important,
work.
I think.
Yeah, like I want it to exist outside of like... It has to be 2022 or whatever. Obviously, with the cinematography and everything, you're going to tell it's a more modern film, but...
Yeah, I mean, there's a phone cut in one of her... She gets a call from her
yeah,
lawyer,
like
right?
That's the one kind of sort of like device that I can remember that's in there.
Period the piece.
Yeah,
but
right.
Yeah, I mean, I like that it's not too hooked into anything about that. I mean, it's all about human connection. And how you montage that. And I love that you chose to do the... how do you classify this? I mean, it's like camcorder footage, basically.
Oh yeah, like the DV.
I do want to know, how did you do DV? Is that through the same system, the 2K?
No, that's
body?
a good question. So I, kind of as we were going through, and I was figuring out the best way to economically show the totality of the relationship between James and Lucy, and then the destruction of that.
Yeah, the family dynamic.
Yeah, I knew it was like, okay, it's a short, you're already pressed on time. So I really wanted to try to show, okay, here's this whole montage that you see is like trying to almost sum up, hey, they met, they got together, had a kid, things were good and then they were bad. Like all in this, which is so much to cover in a small time frame. But I very much knew that, okay, with the home video and sort of having this idea that it was like late 90s and Lucy likes, not that it was necessarily set in late 90s, but there's a lot of late 90s and early 2000s influence, even down to the glycerin, right? With like Bush and I always loved the idea that Lucy loves 90s culture and
you gave her that tattoo,
she has a little bit of the tattoo on the rose, like on the back side, which was fake. We should mention. I don't think we mentioned it. Yeah, no, it's fake, and it was a great. So my hair and makeup person, her name is Tiffy DeJesus. She actually moved to Australia like right after the film.
Oh wow!
But she was great. She had this whole set of like fake tattoos, and we were looking at what things we could do and accessories we could just give to help personalize each character, which ended up being one of my favorite parts of pre-production. And she was like, "Hey, what would you think about possibly her having a tattoo?" And I always thought, I was like, I think Lucy has one tattoo, right? Like one something kind of visible, subtle tattoo,
classy, but maybe she has some history.
Totally right. Like it's not like she's not totally tatted up. She has the one. And here's I
got one tattoo.
I see it. I love it. And what's really I'm glad we're getting to talk about this, because this is also something that's extremely personal to me. So much of Lucy and finding the spirit of that character, the voice, her interests, even some of like the hairbrush where the mother brushes her hair over the daughter's face.
Oh yeah, I love that.
That was something that was based off of reality. So that all came from something my mom used to do to me when I was a little boy.
Oh wow, yeah, it seems so personal. I could feel it.
Yeah, and it was so. That's why sometimes those things are so oddly specific. You're like, how did you think? And you just, I just drew from reality, and
it's beautiful when you do that.
Thank you, man. And I feel really grateful that I was able to really instill a lot of my mom into Lucy. Like very much. Obviously, that's my experience of having a mother and growing up with her and things she did to me, and like brushing her hair over my face. I just have a very distinctive memory when I was really young. That was one of the few things at that really young age that really stands out to me. And I think it was because it was a sensory sensation.
Of course, right? Yeah. There's different things. I have the same like
face. You're like,
yeah, like my mother or my aunt would give me like an arm tickle thing, and that's just something I remember is that touch and like that comfort that came from
100%
sensory.
Yeah, and just feeling like you just knowing at that age, oh, this is my mom, knowing what a mom is supposed to do, at least to the degree you could. And again, she loved 90s grunge when I was growing up. I was born in 93, and I just remember she would always listen to this Kilo rock station in Colorado Springs where I grew up, and they would play stuff like Glycerin, like Alice in Chains, and all of that grunge. So I have a very fond memory of that era of music because of that too, and that's why so much of like that Glycerin song we kind of like the knockoff, I guess, that we made with my friend Andrew.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because I couldn't get the rights because Glycerin is pretty expensive, even still. But
yeah, no, I'm sure. Hey,
that came out in '92, which is crazy.
Hey, the full length, you never know.
Yeah, I was like, that would be great because I think it'd be great still. I want to try to fit it in there. But I think, I developed a love of that era because of that, because my mom listened to it, I listened to it when I was young. And so I definitely, it was almost a no-brainer to me when I was starting to conceive of Lucy that, I mean, she has that 90s rock influence. That's the music she listens to. Those are the kinds of stuff that's on her wall. She has like a little bit of an element of one tattoo. It's funny. My mom has one tattoo. Wow. One tattoo. That's it. And it's in a funny place, but it's just like, that's also memorable to me. It's like, yeah, she has a one tat. So that again, I think was also something I drew from that. And
it's this like just having you describe your film at this intimate level for yourself is like, that's the magic. Like for filmmakers, like trying to make that piece that really sets them apart. It's this. It's this identity. You've added your identity, like DNA to this film. That's so incredibly personal to you. Yeah. And that can't be replicated in a way because like who's gonna think of the 90s grunge mom?
Yeah, and it just felt like
that's a cuddle buddy.
Yeah. Like, and it almost just was. It's great to do that way because it's, for one, you're drawing on memories that are already there. So you're really just going to what really happened. Yeah. Right. And it's,
how do we map this out authentically? This is what I see. Is what I feel.
Totally. And I think to speak to the other part of the film too, that it also is personal, is the fact that the parents are divorced and they go through divorce. So my parents are divorced in real life. Thankfully, it wasn't that tumultuous as you see. That was heightened as far as like the drama of it, them like screaming, like that never happened with my parents, thank goodness. Yeah. But they got divorced when I was very young, and
same actually. I relate to it. Yeah, my parents divorced at when I was 4.
Oh wow. Okay, that was basically right around the time.
Okay.
I was about 5, so and also about the same age Marina is too, right? But
yeah, that's interesting. Maybe that's something subconscious happening to me while I'm watching the film that I'm not realizing.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Because I was crying and I'm like, where's all this emotion coming from? So it could have been coming from a deep-rooted place from my own parents splitting up. I don't know. It definitely hooks something deep in me. I was like, wow, this is really got me.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think I realized too, just kind of on that level, that was something I was aware of, but I'd also seen bad divorces and been around that from just some of our other family. And even what's interesting is I got out of this horrible job. I was working for this big director whose name I won't say, but he was going through a divorce at the time I was working for him. And so that was rough to even see how it affected him. Both parents seemed to be using the kids as a pawn in the divorce, kind of what you see in the film. And it for better or for worse, it was like, it gave me some good creative juice to kind of come in once I got out of that job, because it was a terrible job. But it was like, wow, this is the other side of divorce that thankfully I didn't have to personally experience in my own family, but I've seen, and I've also experienced from other members of our family who've had messy divorces. And it can do that to a family. It can destroy people. It can change people. that to me just became the interesting arc outside of cuddling, because I always knew that cuddling could only take me so far as being a topic within the film itself. I never wanted it to be, you're coming just for the cuddling and you're staying for it too. I knew it was you're coming for the cuddling, but you're staying for the family emotional connections, the mother-daughter dynamic, and just the sheer humanity of the people around Lucy, really. It's learning really her movie.
Yeah, I want to, as an audience member, I want to know, why does she do this? And maybe that's something you've experienced with the, because you hired the Cuddle Buddy, and getting to know somebody in real life that chooses this profession, that chooses this path.
Yeah.
What brought you there, and why?
That's a really good question.
Why do you do it? And I know you're helping people, but it's an interesting choice of career, and it can affect your own relationships, right? If you're, say, my girlfriend or me as a male, for her, like if I chose to do cuddle budding, how do I balance a relationship in that?
For sure, I think it's a very good question, and I think the answer could totally vary from cuddler to cuddler. I think the things that I seem to get most consistently when I talked to Gene, and I did talk with some other cuddlers too, was the idea that it also does feel good to be needed in any capacity. So even if you're helping somebody by providing that touch and being there, it also still, they get a boost off of feeling like somebody does use their touch and needs their touch, and it helps them, so they get a boost off of feeling kind of needed in that way, if that makes sense.
You're a healer. You're using your life in some healing capacity, even though it's not something traditional.
Totally. So I think for Lucy, it's very much something where she already had kind of had a interest in therapy, psychology, right? And like in college, psychology is what she studied, and then she ended up finding out this was a line of work, wanted to know more about it, got intrigued by it, and then really realized, like, as a kid, this is all backstory that I kind of envisioned, she didn't get a lot of touch and affection from her parents. So when she finally did kind of discover what it did feel like to have real touch in her life, even platonic, it opened her eyes as to the possibilities of what being connected to somebody physically really could do, especially when you're growing up in a family at that impressionable age where you're not really getting that. So I think she realizes she wants to be able to be this kind of support figure for her clients, but really her daughter too. And I think that's actually, to kind of go back and answer one of your earlier questions about the feature, one of the two things that I'll tease here that I was interested in trying to explore more of in the feature is, for one, I do want to show and establish more of, for one, how did cuddling start, but how did Lucy find it, and really establish that and show that.
How did that come about? And did it come about when they were married? Like, was she already married and then she stumbled into this career? Or was she a cuddler? They met through cuddling, and now he doesn't want, no, you're mine. Is it dominating? Is it like, no, this is my love. You gave me,
Totally.
I'm thinking of all the routes it can go, and I'm like,
and without spoiling too much.
I don't want to spoil anything. I'm just giving my.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. But I envision that she is not married. She hasn't met James when she finds the work and really becomes the professional cuddler and really makes this her vocation. But to me, those things are all super interesting too, because I do think.
Yeah, was James a cuddle partner?
Interesting.
That's where my mind goes, because, it's not. It's supposed to be platonic. Like
Right.
if I'm like the head of the Cuddle Buddy or CEO of Cuddle Buddies, I'm thinking like, what are the golden rules of cuddle budding? And rule number 1 is keep it platonic.
Yes, that's 100%.
You were
Probably
there,
the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, you're there to establish a healing service. You know what I mean? It's like if I'm a masseuse and I do house calls, I got to have some rules because there's going to be women or men that
100%.
make the move. They're getting massaged. They may be lonely. This could be like a very intimate moment for them.
Yeah.
You know, I've thought about this as like doing masseuse as a career.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like, what are those golden rules? And was James the exception? And then it shattered the career.
Well, I think the main, I don't envision that mainly because again, in trying to uphold the professional cuddling community and to depict it, and her also being someone who would uphold that code too as a good professional cuddler, I think I probably wouldn't go into that side just for fear of it being like, well, see, but it could happen, you know. She broke the golden, like one of the golden rules, so she'd be a bad professional cuddler.
Yeah, so it can,
you know. So I wanted to be very careful with that too, knowing like, you know, I think the community would come for me, probably rightfully so, if I depicted that angle.
But it's just as interesting.
It's a great question though. That's in the narrative world though, the story is a total possibility, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's just as interesting to have him not be a client and to discover how was he okay with it? How did it get to marriage? How did, because that's part of your
that's
film
a great question
too. Like,
the
ring was in the bed.
Right.
How did he get to that level of like, I want to marry this woman, even though she's got this career that could make me feel a little insecure. That's a great thing to kind of explore, which is like
totally. It's a great point. Wow. It's one of the things in workshopping the feature has come up that I think is needs workshopping, to be completely honest with you. Just in all transparency.
I love spitballing it. It's
I
think you have a great story, so it just excites me. Like you see me like going all these directions because I'm like, I love character development. I just think it's the heart of what we do, you know?
Yeah, and you know, and the thing is, if you really, honestly, if you get blessed from the story gods with a concept that has that kind of
the story gods,
like
the mythical,
I know,
the myth gods, Joseph Campbell's, like, bless us.
I know, it's funny. I kind of describe it that way because I really like. Okay, this is the way that just super rewind for a moment. The way that I discovered cuddling and the way that I got onto this idea to do a film from the very beginning was I was literally sitting in a Starbucks in Santa Monica after work one day, my first year in LA. This would have been 2016 at the time, and and I'm literally
a year after we met.
Totally. I think it might have been that year. Like
it might have been even that year.
It was, so this was that early. This was, the idea was starting to just kind of
so gestate. We're talking, what is that, 6 years?
Yeah. So I literally Googled, sitting there at one of the desks, I literally Googled world's most bizarre jobs. And I did it literally looking for inspiration for characters, for short film story ideas, because I was looking for inspiration to write a short and eventually try to make it, and that professional cuddling came up on the list, like pretty low down, and I remember just reading it and being just really taken. I went, that's really interesting, and I wish I could say it was this strategic at the time. I don't think it was, but I just knew, okay, if I have some kind of bizarre job or something that I could explore in a film, that could make an interesting character, right? And if I just do a quick character study, that could be just a good, interesting short film. And that's really what kind of turned me on to cuddling when I found it in the article, when I searched for that. Because then when I read the article about a lady who does it in New York City, again, everything just started kind of going off all in my brain as far as possibilities. And that's really when I started going, oh, okay, so somebody does this for a living. This is a job. How does it work? Like that, and the fact that it had me asking so many questions was great, because that's what you want an idea to do, or a concept, or any kind of thing. Because if you want to know more about it, chances are somebody else will too.
And that's what happened to me. You hit me like on TikTok. I saw this like bit trailer, and I was like, what? Cuddle Buddy? And I was like, wait, what? Like, it just immediately started my brain going, what is this? I got to know more about this. What did you do a whole short? Oh my God, there's a 15-minute short. Like, you know, it's just like it builds the interest as an audience member, where you start tumbling into this whole world that you didn't know existed.
Yeah. Thanks, man. And I think that's what happened for me too. And the deeper I dug into the world, the more interesting it became. And I think grateful I became to know more about it and know what it wasn't also. And I'm really glad that I knew that I needed to do this right and really do the research, dive in. But it all started with just kind of having that search and just being honestly in search of motivation and inspiration for a story. And again, what's interesting is it started off as a comedy. I wrote it, and then I shelved it for a long time, and I did some other projects, and thank goodness this my friend Travis Mitchell, he had seen an early draft of it, and he had always seen potential in it that I didn't see. And I really didn't think I was going to do anything with it. I was like, it's kind of an interesting, fun idea, but whatever. It really was just very throwaway for so long, which is so interesting. And then after I had completed this one short film I'd been working on for a long time, I kind of was looking for, okay, what's my next project going to be? And I was talking a lot with Travis at the time, and he kept kind of going, hey, I think there's something here. We could do this cheap. I think this is he just had like this. He kept pushing it, and I went, okay, yeah. And then I really turned my sights back onto it and went, yeah, okay. But so what's interesting is I do think actually having the moment I talked about earlier about deciding I'm going to be like a spokesperson for this story, and to a degree this world, this community, at least to my friends and family, because they're gonna want to ask about it. That didn't actually come till like maybe 2 years after that initial draft.
When you're like, okay, this is going to be something, because you also it sounds like how you're describing it was going to be more of like a close group of friends making a film or something on a shorter, like,
totally,
hey, let's get like 4 or 5 people together and make this thing, not like what you bloomed into.
I think I really probably envisioned it as much cheaper, smaller, just a smaller overall just kind of idea and film, and I'm definitely know the first iterations of the film were very much comedic, like just goofy, silly. There was not a lot of drama. I don't even know how involved the mother-daughter storyline was. So that's what's really crazy to think about, those very first drafts and how far it came, you know, to where it eventually, I think it was close to like draft 20 that we went into production with.
Wow.
You know, 20 revisions.
For all you writers out there, hear that.
Yeah, and that's for sure.
20 drafts.
And it was, and I have to say, those 20 drafts were, I needed to do, right?
Yeah.
Like I still was tinkering and but at some point, the other advice is like, know when to stop and like, make it. Don't get caught in the perfection quagmire where you just get sucked in and then you never make it.
Because at the end of the day, you're making a short.
Yeah.
And you gotta like, okay, how big are you making the world? And like, are you adding too much? Well, it's good to do the backstory, but are you adding too much to the actual short script?
Yeah. And you know, what's really interesting too is, and I've learned this about myself as a writer, I love to subconsciously, I just overwrite people's dialogue every time, especially in the first draft. And so a lot of the drafts, especially in the later phase of the short, before we got it to production ready, was really just cutting down, like, okay, how do I take this whole thing and put it with one line?
Yeah, what are you trying to...
Exactly. What am I trying to say, and how can I distill it to a line? And again, because it's a short, you're really trying to be concise, or maybe you don't need the line at all.
And that's smart because, dude, something I can't stand in cinema today is too much dialogue.
Yeah.
Too much, it's too wordy.
It doesn't need to be there.
It doesn't need to be there at all, and in fact, you've lost the artistic nature of what cinema is.
Yeah.
Show it.
Show, don't tell, right? And so,
yeah.
Thankfully, too, I mean, I had one of my good friends from Elon, where I went to college. Her name's Patterson Huggins. She went through at least probably 3 or 4 drafts with me, and she gives great notes, and I'm super grateful that she helped me develop a lot of, the script and kind of getting the story to be what it was.
That's great. Real quick, I just want to touch on that for people that were curious. What school did you go to?
I went to Elon University in North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay.
Yeah. So they
and you got was it a 4-year?
Yeah, it's a 4-year cinema degree. Technically, it's a liberal arts university, so it wasn't a film school, like solely a film school. But yeah, I graduated with a BA in cinema.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So. I just thought it was something cool we could touch on just for young filmmakers that may be tuning into this saying, I'm looking for schools. I don't really want to do the USC route. I want to expand out or try a new state in America.
I think the good news is there's so many good schools and programs, and I think it's if you can just go and build a great community of people and get your hands on some gear and just do it. I mean,
absolutely.
I did a thesis project at school that was way cheaper than if I had done it out here in LA.
Of course.
And those were my stomping grounds for doing a short like Cuddle Buddies, honestly, and kind of seeing what themes I continue to gravitate towards.
It's your style now. You're kind of like,
and I'm very aware of it for the most part now, which is good because I think in certain ways now I can be more conscious when I want to lean into it, when I need to try to push myself to not just go back to the way I do things, So I think it's that growth as a filmmaker too. Is you can only learn that by doing and then watching, and the greatest part about making films is people can see all of the fruits of your labor with their own eyes, and the other thing is you can too, so you can watch it and be critical and go, I am doing that a lot, or I'm doing a lot of these kinds of shots, or I write dialogue this, how do I break out of that, which is great. And in a lot of other industries I don't think you can just look at it so clearly and be like, yes, right there I can look at this thing and work from it.
But how do you stay true to your colors too? Because I took a Hitchcock class where we studied Alfred Hitchcock all semester.
Love Hitchcock.
13, 14 films.
Yes.
And it was so fascinating to look at his first film.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, wait a minute. Like, look at all these things. He loves to show detailed shots. He likes to show, she picks up the knife. Look at the hand going in for the knife.
Yeah, like
look at how her hand caresses the knife, and it's showing these detailed shots that you're like, oh, wait a minute, he's grasping on to what Hitchcockian style is going to be. So I think it's important for you as an artist too to recognize, where are your comforts, but also what are your colors that you're really showcasing as an artist that labels you as you, and makes what gets you off in film that you're feeding, which is great. Which it sounds like this 90s era. You and I setting up this podcast, we're rocking out to Glycerin.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. It's the first thing
Nirvana,
I see. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And I think that's just one of the great luxuries of getting to make things like films and art that way is you are having to build a world that feels realistic, or at least feels like it has some ties to reality if you're doing something
it doesn't have to either. It could be fantasy.
That's true. Yeah,
it's whatever you want, whatever in your mind, your heart,
yeah. And I think
you create it.
Yeah, totally. And like doing that work, knowing a lot of info about a lot of subjects is really important, because I think it just makes you a better filmmaker and more tuned in to,
of course,
your world and that you're building. And I think, you know, one of the things too that was great about doing this film was building a whole nother community of crew too, that I can, and I hope to work with again in the future.
Yeah.
Because you work with these people, these awesome craftsmen and women and people at their crafts, and you need them to make these films. And I it's always been a big frustration of mine that the crew doesn't get more support, more love in the credits, more love in the press. I mean, I just really, I think it's just a big injustice, you know. I really think that, and I think they deserve a hell of a lot more credit for all of the work and backbreaking labor that they do on these sets on a daily basis.
Even lighting. I mean, you and I spent an hour in here just trying to perfect what you guys are seeing right now, you know, the highlights, the shadows, like tweaking, and you know, these lighting people, these grips, these sound designers, like it's all art, and it comes into the form of this final 15 minutes, which people, you know, may be aware of, or they may not be, but
true.
It's good to call upon that and show, because people are probably watching right now and saying, oh yeah, like I didn't even think about that, you know. Some people don't know what a light, there's a lighting designer, what are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah, there's somebody on set, like, you know, can I get a bounce up in that corner? Can I cut some light over here? You know, I need cinefoil. Like, people don't understand all the intricacies.
Yeah, and I do think, it's like, I hope if anything, it can bring to light this idea that no matter what movie or TV show you're watching, even if it's not what you'd consider good, or if it's even if it is pretty objectively bad, it still took a lot of work to do, and a lot of people put time and effort into crafting it and making it happen and being on set for long hours, and so I just, you know, I implore people to just at least consider, before you trash something so quickly, think about the work that went into it, and just, you know that a lot of people spend a lot of time and effort putting this thing together, you know.
Dude, it's quite the industry. I'm always appreciative.
So one of the last technical things that I wanted to expound upon a little, because I just found it interesting, is with the whole section that's the split screen part during the cuddle montage between the two clients. Is that whole section was very interesting, because when that was initially scripted going into production, those were supposed to just be two separate longer cuddle scenes, not intercut, right? We weren't supposed to go back and forth between each one. What ended up happening was I brought on a guy that I ended up meeting who had done a lot of post work, and he kind of came on to be like my co-editor or assistant editor, I guess, in a lot of ways. And what was really great is he had like 2 or 3 dynamite suggestions for me once, because we were passing back and forth a Premiere project file for a little bit that we edited with, and the coolest thing was just to kind of see, sometimes he would kind of mock it up and try different things, and the 2 or 3 big suggestions that he made had tremendous impact structurally on the film, you know, which was great because he wasn't on set, he hadn't really seen the script. So he really was a fresh pair of eyes, right? And
That's great.
Been so
you need that.
You do need that. And
it's a great counterbalance to hand it off to an editor and be like, can you just give me your opinion? And, fresh.
And you know, the first big suggestion that he suggested was that split screen section that we're discussing, where he actually said to me, he's like, hey, have you considered, first of all, intercutting these scenes to make it shorter, right? So because the first cut of the film is 30 minutes, and it was like, well, that's not gonna work. So one of the ways we were able to cut down was by condensing both of the cuddle scenes to be a quicker overall cuddle section. We called it like the cuddle montage, basically. And because it's not technically a montage, it's more of just like a cross-cutting between both. But we found that just by cross-cutting between each scene, it kept it moving, and we got to learn more about both clients and see Lucy do her thing. And there was a lot of similarities that offered good cutting transitional shots between each. Mm-hmm. But also what was cooler was we were trying to think of a creative way to showcase the totality of all the cuddle sections, almost in like a big like grid kind of setting. Yeah. But we ended up realizing, okay, split screen's cool, but maybe we do another layer to that and we go bigger, right? And that was kind of a risk we took that I loved that he suggested. He went, hey, I know this is going to sound crazy, but have you thought about doing like a split screen and then maybe we add more frame? And it was
like a double split, right? You did like 4.
Right, so we first splits. Cut the frame in half with one black line down the middle.
Yeah.
And then we cut it again into fourths by cutting each half into halves one more time, right? And but it was very tricky it was all just experimentation of trial and error, trying to even figure out how the pattern draws, how the lines come down. There was multiple combinations. I could have even kept trying more of which shots to put in there, because think about it, with one frame you have that many possibilities, and then you multiply that by 4, you have like thousands more possibilities of what 4 shots are on screen at the same time. So it's a headache. So we ended up finally getting kind of those 4, and we actually went even crazier for a time, like, you know, maybe 6 frames, like ones that were dissolving into like crazy stuff. And thank goodness I realized, like, oh, that's way too much. Like we got to go creative and take a big swing, but not that big, because if we do, it's not going to work. So I think we knew enough to kind of be subtle with that, and it was really just trial and error, and that was not scripted at all. And so that was one of the really great discoveries in editorial, which I love when you have that, and I think it's worth it to allow discoveries to happen in post. So that was cool, and that was all just trial and error, experimenting, getting the right combo of the positions, and that really was just one of the big creative things I wanted to try. And honestly, when you're tapped into the world of a story so well, you're more willing to try, and you already know what big swings you're going to take. The very last thing I just wanted to spotlight too that was interesting about what changed from like script to edit phase was the other scene that we ended up switching that used to be the second to last scene right before you see the final scene of the mother and daughter cuddling, and then we go to black. The scene that used to be the scene right before that was the one where she's on the phone. She gets the phone call, right? And she says, F you, James, and then we go.
But you put that earlier in the film.
Right, so we totally switched it in editing, because it was still scripted as being the second to last scene. What was a really smart call on the other editor's part, Anderson, as his name is, he said, hey, I think we need to establish these stakes a lot earlier. And that scene really establishes the fact that she's in a custody battle, she's really pissed, and she might lose a daughter, and she basically says, why does he want to take her from me? She basically outlines a lot of different things in that scene. So it is a very pivotal scene, and the best part about it was we were able to just swap it in editing, and it didn't rupture any other part of the film structurally, and it actually was the right call, because we set those stakes earlier, then we go into the rest, and we already know at that point, we've been set up to know, like, oh, ex-husband trying to take her, now we can let the drama play out, you know.
No, I absolutely agree with that call. It definitely it amped it up. It was punchy right in the beginning of the film, and it just like there's something about that, like that screaming that like really captures you right off the go.
The raw,
I like that call. I think that was the right move there.
Thanks. Yeah, I think so too, and I think just keeping yourself open to good suggestions and the possibility of what you'll discover in post is great, and sometimes thinking outside the box is the key. So
I love that. Well, hey, Jordan Roman, thank you so much, man.
Of course, Aaron Mann. It's a pleasure to be
Jordan Roman.
Yeah.
The man.
New hybrid podcast.
Yeah, there you go. Right there. Dude, thank you so much for being here for the journey, for being here on the podcast and reconnecting with me and showing me just the intricacies of this film, because I felt it. It's a 15-minute film, but you drew me in. You put so much heart into it, and I felt it, man. And for all of you out there, you guys have to go see his film. It is on VIMEO. It's free, so you got no excuses. You got to go watch this film right now. Show this man support. I want to know, where else can people connect with you? We talked about TikTok.
Yeah.
I think we talked about Instagram. Yeah. But like, give some of those, user handles and screen names and where people can. Your Patreon. I don't know.
Yeah.
How can
thanks. Maybe I should start one. I don't have one of those. I should start one, but. I would say probably the easiest place to find me that I'm fairly active and post a good amount, especially of my work, is Instagram. So my Instagram handle is @Joro, Joro 719.
Okay.
So yeah, you can find me there. I am on Facebook, but I don't really post too much on Facebook these days.
Yeah, it's kind of the last app I reach.
Yeah, for sure. And I am trying to stay hip and post more on TikTok. So I think my username on there is like, it's funny, I don't even know. I think it's like Jordan Roman 18 or something, or 1. Jordan Roman 1.
Yeah, I think it might be that.
It's either 1 or 18 after my name, all lowercase.
I think your content looks great on TikTok, so
thanks,
keep that up.
I really appreciate that, because
that's how we got to thank TikTok. That's
That's true. Apparently that algorithm is supposed to be a lot better than Instagram's. That's what I hear.
It really pushes out to, people or friends of friends, and like, I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of people are posting and getting like crazy results. Like, how did I get 10,000 views? Like, what?
Right. Yeah.
You just don't know.
It's true. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to be on the podcast. So thank you again for letting me talk about myself and the film and watching it and caring to ask questions. And honestly, it really has been a great honor of my life so far to have worked on a project like this. So to be able to share it and talk about it is really a pleasure. So,
of course,
thank you.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure, and I love doing this. I love being in the arts and connecting with artists and giving a platform and spotlighting and just giving back to this community that is such a huge part of my life. And like, it just makes sense. Like, I don't. Yeah. We were talking about that fire that lives inside you. There's something fiery inside of me that's just like, do the podcast, like, do your YouTube, like, make your own thing, like, just help put on the people that you've gotten in contact with you. Like, so many interesting people, and like, just this podcast shows that. I mean, it showcases that so well. It's like, this has been amazing. This has been such a joy for me to just have this conversation with you, and I know that other creatives are going to connect with that. Like, I know a ton of writer friends. I know a ton of directors and cinematographers, and just all levels of it, where they want to hear this conversation, because this is, they're like, man, that's oh my god, I'm totally in that mindset. I'm like, I struggle with this, and it's just great. We're all connecting, and there's power in connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Human connection, man.
Should we do the
Cuddle Buddies for
Cuddle Buddies for life, buddy? All right,
that's a good book ending.
Yeah, that's a great book ending. Cuddle Buddies for life. Thank you guys. Go check it out on VIMEO, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.